Hi, how are you?
Hi, good. How are you? Nice to
Good.
see you.
Nice to see you as well. Miss seeing you on campus.
Thanks. Same here. Take care. Look forward to
You
being
too.
with you.
Yep, same.
So it looks like we are live. It looks like we are recording, and I'll call the forum to order. Thank you all for being here. Obviously, we'll be talking with the Board of Regents today. We'll be talking with NetSheet today, and we'll be talking with the FAC as well. I know that when this committee was implemented, it was supposed to meet more regularly, and it's been a number of years and been fairly sporadic. I would like for us to be meeting more regularly. Right now, we're thinking about 2 months or so. I think every month is a lot, and we'll see if maybe even 2 months is a lot too. I'll get a chance to check with my other committee members and get a sense from them what they think actually makes the most sense. And so before kicking it off, I want to give my ranking members, and I'm not seeing my co-chair here yet, so I think he'll be a little bit late, but I do see Senator Whitcoast if you have any comments before we begin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly do appreciate everybody spending the time with us this morning, and kind of some of us haven't been on higher ed for a while or brand new to the committee to give us the update. We have a lot of bills in our committee this year that have to do with the subject matter that you're about to discuss, and I think this gives us a little bit more of a background and a status report of which would enable us to make good public policy decisions. So I'm looking forward to hearing what you all have to say today. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you so much, Senator. And Irene, is Irene here? Not seeing her. Why don't we get started? I know we have about an hour for each of you, so I'll be quiet and take it away.
Thank you. Senator Slapp, Representative Elliott, Senator Whitcoast, Representative Haynes, members of the Higher Education and Employment Advancement Committee, and members of the Higher Education Consolidation Committee. My name is Dr. Jane Gates, and I am proud to serve as interim president and provost for CSCU. Today, you will hear from members of the Connecticut State Community College Executive Team about the progress we've made toward the merger of our 12 community colleges into a single accredited institution. You will hear about the status quo and how our current fragmented, unequal system is perpetuating student inequities, particularly for students of color that have existed for decades but have not improved and cannot improve without systemic change. You will hear about how we are working to counter that by adopting national best practices to improve student success and equity, and how this is only possible if we become one community college. You will get a glimpse of the vision for the one college and how it will improve the student experience and make a stronger college into the future. You will hear about the urgency of improving the community college's fiscal situation as well. A staggering 15% drop in enrollment because of COVID-19 has already made an already perilous fiscal situation even more dire. And you will hear specifically how the merger will create substantial savings and put the college on firmer fiscal footing. You will hear about how far we've come toward completing the merger and what final steps are needed to meet accreditation standards. You will hear about how one college structure will improve community connections, keeping the fundamental aspect of community front and center in everything we do. And finally, you will hear about the benefits of the regional workforce development structure, how it is nimbler and better equipped to work quickly to meet the needs of employers, and how it has already paid dividends by bringing in federal dollars to support our critical workforce development efforts. In short, you will hear why the merger can, must, and will happen, and how it will keep our campuses operational into the future and ensure every student who enters our doors has the opportunity to succeed in our colleges and beyond. I would now like to introduce Dr. David Levinson, interim president of Connecticut State Community College.
Great. Thank you so much, President Gates. It's my privilege to be with you this morning. I am David Levinson, and I have the delightful opportunity to serve as interim president of Connecticut State Community College. Connecticut State Community College will be a world-class institution organized specifically to meet our goals of student success and completion. The faculty we have today who excel at teaching and learning will continue to teach on their campus while being part of statewide departments that build and expand academic excellence. For students, the merger means that they can take classes across the state at any time or location that fits with the demands of work and family. All students, regardless of where they live, will have the access to support themselves and their families so that they live successful lives. And finally, and most importantly, the 12 campuses will remain open and will thrive. We arrived at this plan because it offers the best opportunity to improve the student experience while keeping all of our campuses open. In short, merging the colleges allows us to fulfill our mission more completely. Today, you will hear evidence of how things have and will continue to improve for our students, employees, communities, and state. We are proud of the work that we have done and the steady progress we have made to meet our goal of improving access and success. It's now my pleasure to introduce the team that is with me today. Great. You've already had the opportunity to hear from Dr. Jane Gates, our interim president. Dr. Michael Rook is here with me, interim provost, Connecticut State Community College, and also serving as president of Northwestern Connecticut Community College. Dr. Allison Buckley is here with me today, vice president of Enrollment Management and Student Affairs for Connecticut State. Ms. Carrie Kelly, the interim vice president of Finance and Administration and CFO for Connecticut State. Dr. Duncan Harris, CEO of Capital Community College. Eileen Peltier, Chief Workforce Officer of the Northwest Region. Dr. Francine Roselli Navarro, Interim Associate Vice President of Academic Affairs and Curriculum. Dr. Rob Steinmetz, Regional President of the Capital East Region. And Michael Stefanowicz, the Interim Associate Vice President for Academic Affairs. I have a great team that I'm working with. Any discussion of the merger must start with an understanding of the challenges we are facing. First, community college enrollments have declined precipitously since 2012. Today, we serve nearly 18,000 fewer students than we did in 2012. These declines exacerbate the budgetary crisis we currently face, and unfortunately, more than half of our colleges have negative reserves. Second, and just as importantly, we're failing to adequately support the students we do have to successfully complete or transfer. As a result, our students and their families suffer. Connecticut has the lowest community college completion rate in New England. That 3-year rate is at 16%. The data is even more jarring when you compare white students to Black and Latinx students. While white students complete at 22%, it's only 11% for Black and Latinx students. In other words, it is twice as likely as a white student will complete a degree compared to Black and Latino students. And across too many of our key performance indicators, students of color are not faring well. Perhaps one of the most tragic figures that we have for you today is that if you look at new students who started community college in the fall of 2019, less than half returned for a second year. We can and we must do better. Long-term inequity harms our poorest communities. Had we closed the achievement gap, nearly 3,000 more students would have received degrees between 2013 and 2018. Our faculty, staff, and administrators care deeply about improving these metrics, but we have not been able to realize meaningful change despite our best intentions, and it's only made more difficult by our current fragmented structure. Connecticut students deserve more from us. The merger of the colleges allows us to design an organization that is specifically designed to improve poor student outcomes. In the past 15 years, there has been considerable federal and state policy action and substantial philanthropic investment to help students complete a post-secondary credential. Initially, this work focused on small, discrete pilots, and the disparities for degree completion, particularly for Black and Latinx students, remained. Over the past 10 years, it has become clear that changes along the edges are just not enough to improve and achieve equitable student outcomes. The Guided Pathways framework has emerged as one of the most prominent and effective college-wide reform efforts and is endorsed by all major national community college intermediaries and organizations. The Alamo College District in Connecticut, for example, which has the same number of students as Connecticut's colleges, has doubled the percentage of students earning 24 credits in their first year of study and nearly tripled the percentage of students completing college-level math and English. These are important indicators that a student is likely to complete a degree. Unfortunately, they've remained flat in Connecticut, while outcomes in systems that have implemented guided pathways has soared. Connecticut State Community College is designed based on research-driven best practices that re-envision the student experience from initial onboarding through completion and employment or further education. We have worked closely with our accreditors, the New England Commission on Higher Education, from whom you'll be hearing today, and we will be filing a progress report with them come June 1. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. Allison Buckley, our Vice President for Enrollment Management and Student Success, who will share more specifics about our work to support students. Dr. Buckley.
Thank you, President Levinson. Good morning. My name is Allison Buckley, and I serve as the Vice President for Enrollment Management and Student Affairs at Connecticut State Community College. I thought it would be helpful to highlight the aspects of our current situation that we are working to fix. Last fall, 7,400 students applied for aid at more than one community college. That's 20% of the student population. Our students are asking for portability. They want to move between campuses to reach their short-term and long-term educational goals. As 12 individually accredited colleges, federal regulations prohibit us from sharing student data. In addition, students are only allowed to receive federal financial aid at one college at a time. While 20% want to take classes at more than one campus, only 1% can overcome the daunting bureaucracy needed to make that happen. Our student services are not consistent for all students in all locations. One of the most concerning aspects of the status quo is our student to advisor ratio, 750 to 1. That will be rectified under Connecticut State Community College, but only because we are moving to a new model. In accordance with NECHI standards and to support their guidance at Connecticut State Community College act as an accredited institution prior to completing the merger, this fall we implemented a qualitative mechanism for us to understand the student experience and to regularly evaluate the effectiveness of our service to students. The survey included open-ended questions that we analyzed for themes. This is a word cloud of our responses to the question, what do you like most about your college? The faculty, my campus, the people, the community. The size of the text represents its frequency in the student responses. And I call attention to this here because the things that our students value do not change as a result of the merger. I would like to come back to President Levinson's comments at the beginning. At Connecticut State Community College, students will apply for admissions once. They apply for aid once. They take classes anywhere in the state, and because of a common catalog, those classes count towards graduation. At Connecticut State Community College, our student to advisor ratio will be 250 to 1, far better than our current ratio of 750 to 1. Students, regardless of where they live, will have consistent and equitable access to the supports they need for challenges outside the classroom: homelessness, food insecurity, mental health supports. Financial aid will be consistently applied for all community colleges across the state. You may hear today that we can make all of these changes happen and achieve our goals without merging. That is simply not true. Our completion and success rates have remained constant for the past 10 years, despite the efforts of the individual colleges to improve student outcomes. Changes around the edges are not enough. This requires a systemic approach. And frankly, some of the improvements we are working towards will not and cannot be realized until we are recognized as one institution by both the Department of Education, with a single Office of Post-Secondary Education ID, that's the OPEID, and by NETCHI. I think it is important to come back to the data point earlier. 20% of our students want to take classes at multiple campuses, and only 1% do so. The Department of Education stipulates that a student may only receive aid from one college at a time. Multi-campus enrollment requires us to partake in consortium agreements. I would like to share a very specific example of how this works from an email that I received on Monday. A student at Three Rivers Community College needs 2 more classes to graduate this spring. Unfortunately, neither of those classes were offered this term at her home campus. She found both classes at other colleges, one at Asnuntuck Community College and one at Norwalk Community College. Our Three Rivers student completed the admissions application, including high school diploma, submitting her immunization records, submitting her transcripts at both of the other institutions. She also notified Asnuntuck and Norwalk that she's a Three Rivers student and needs her aid at her home institution to pay for her classes via consortium agreement. That's the mechanism by which the Department of Education allows for financial aid students to pay for classes outside their home campus. Not only is it a manual process and labor intensive, but the significant regulatory requirements demanded of every individual college participating in federal Title IV programs also come into play. From the start, the department assumes our student is still taking classes at her home campus. How does Three Rivers disperse aid when the student isn't taking any classes there? What's more, Three Rivers is required by regulation to confirm a student has started participating in classes prior to dispersing aid. How do we do that when the registrars can't see student information at any of the other colleges? This becomes even more cumbersome because the federal government requires us to report student enrollment at the program level every 30 days. As the home institution, this is Three Rivers' responsibility, but the student will not appear in any of their enrollment reports. And if not manually stopped, both Asnuntuck and Norwalk will report incorrectly. What if she drops one of those 2 classes because it's all too much? Well, we must calculate any unearned aid for the department within 30 days or be subject to fines. How does the aid director at Three Rivers meet this requirement when he cannot see the enrollment data from the other colleges? All this, and we haven't even touched on who is looking out for our students' success in the courses. This issue came to my attention because 3 financial aid directors, 3 college registrars, 2 associate vice presidents, and our banner system team are trying to figure out what we need to do manually and throughout the entire term to both satisfy our regulatory requirements and help this one student graduate. Is there a better way? Yes, and it's simple. A single institution, student aid that moves with the student across the state. We are here today in part to share our progress on the work we have done to both act as one college while maintaining the individual accreditation of each of the 12, and which is something we are required to do, and we have made huge progress. Why not stop here? Because we will not be able to solve the systemic barriers for our students without merging. If we would like our students to have portable financial aid that can easily be used at any community college in the state, we can only achieve that by merging the 12 into one single OPEID. We will not be able to have a single admissions process, the ability to engage and support students, share information, and greatly alleviate the administrative burden until we are one college. The regulatory requirements are the same if we're a college of 1,000 or a college of 50,000. I'd like to now turn the presentation over to my colleague, Carrie Kelly, our Interim Chief Financial Officer.
Thank you, Allison. Good morning, everyone. My name is Carrie Kelly. I'm the Interim Vice President of Finance and Administration, the Chief Financial Officer for the Connecticut State Community College. I'll be sharing with you this morning a fiscal outlook that I shared yesterday with our Finance Committee of the Board of Regents, and it will form the basis for our next report with NECHE. Currently, 6 out of our 12 colleges have negative reserves. The colleges have been experiencing declining enrollment since 2014, and this has been further exacerbated by the pandemic. Enrollments are down 31% since 2014. We have a structural fiscal imbalance. Our revenues do not keep pace with expenses. The majority of our revenue, 70%, comes from state appropriations. And though the General Assembly has been very generous and has maintained support while many other states have decreased support for public institutions, the level of support we receive does not keep pace with our expenditures. We know we can't increase tuition to solve our fiscal problems without sacrificing affordability and our commitment to access and equity. Most of our expenditures are fixed costs. They're very difficult to reduce. 84% of our expenses are for faculty and staff in the form of wages and fringe benefits. Operating 12 campuses means there's a lot of duplication across the colleges. The status quo is broken and unsustainable. This is a comparison of our baseline revenues and expenditures. This is what it looks like if we take no action, if we don't unify into a single college. The stacked bar charts show our revenues. The dark blue shows the tuition, and the orange and gray are the funds we receive from the state. The orange is our block grant, and the gray is our fringe benefit support. The key to this chart is the green line. This shows our actual and forecast expenditures. As you can see, if we maintain the status quo, our expenditures outpace our revenues. And by 2026, this produces a deficit of $43 million. Again, the status quo is unsustainable. Through Students First and PACT, our debt-free community college program, we have a pathway to fiscal stability. It's a revenue and expenditure solution that improves student outcomes and helps us better fulfill our mission. We've taken a conservative approach on our forecast. We're projecting baseline enrollments that have a minor bounce back next year after the pandemic, but overall has a negative outlook through fiscal year 26. We attract new students through PACT, and we improve our retention of existing students through guided pathways. Through Students First, we're able to reduce our non-student facing expenditures. We do this by eliminating duplication of services, aligning staff with our organizational needs, by implementing shared services, and by achieving economies of scale. The graph on the right shows how Students First improves fiscal stability. This analysis disregards the federal COVID relief funding. Here we're focusing on the net results from operations. This is the difference between revenues and expenditures. A negative value means that expenditures have exceeded revenues. The gray line shows the baseline or status quo fiscal results. It does not break even with increasing annual deficits. The green dotted line shows how implementing Students First improves outcomes. By 2024, we have permanent positive fiscal results. Let's take a closer look to see how Students First and PACT improve both revenue and expenditures. The blue lines show our baseline. This is status quo, no action. And the orange dotted lines show how things improve with Students First. As you can see on the left, this is a snapshot of revenues, and you can see how with Students First, our revenue increases. And similarly on the right, this is a snapshot of expenses. The blue line is the baseline status quo, and the orange dotted line is how things change under Students First. I want to focus for a moment on enrollments because that's a really significant part of our revenues. This chart shows enrollments from 2014 to 2026. The blue bars on the left show our actual enrollment. And you can see that in 2014, we had a robust enrollment of 33,800. We've experienced a 31% enrollment decline. The orange bars show our baseline enrollment projections into the future. That's what we expect to happen is the status quo. The green line across the top of these blue and orange bars show that trend over time. So the blue is actual and the orange is projected based on this trend. You can see that in FY22, there is a small bounce back after the impact of the pandemic. However, the slope of this line continues into the out years. It's a negative outlook, meaning we forecast negative enrollment growth. Under the status quo, our enrollments are at a threshold that are fiscally unsustainable and jeopardize our mission. However, through Students First, we implement guided pathways and retain more of our students, adding to enrollment. This is depicted in the gray bars. And we build new enrollment through PACT, our debt-free community college program. That's depicted in the yellow bars. Guided Pathways is an investment in improving student success. It enhances persistence and retains our students. It implements the holistic case management advising model and will achieve a 250-to-1 student to advisor ratio. We'll be hiring 175 advisors over 3 years, and we're well underway. We'll have 35 advisors in place this spring and have rolled out Guided Pathways on 3 campuses. The chart on the right compares the cost of implementing Guided Pathways with the anticipated revenue achieved through retention. The orange bars show the cost and the blue bars show the revenue. As you can see, it's a significant investment, particularly upfront. By 2025, Guided Pathways starts to pay for itself, and we see a net benefit to the bottom line. And perhaps most importantly and significantly, more of our students will be achieving their educational goals. Building the one college has costs. Critics have said that abandoning Students First will achieve enough savings to solve the structural fiscal problems of the community colleges. This is simply not true. As you can see in the chart on the right, the blue bars reflect the administrative costs, which include the executive staff of the one college, the 12 staff of our 3 regions. It includes over $400,000 in the current fiscal year for faculty stipends to help align the curriculum with even more money next year. It includes over $900,000 next year to convert 36 classrooms to high flex classrooms. That's 3 per campus. It includes funding over 4 years for an initiative with Achieve the Dream to engage in evidence-based institutional improvement to enhance student success and close the achievement gap. These investments allow us to build a structure that strategically manages the administrative savings as shown in the orange bars. The first 4 orange bars on the left show the actual attrition savings we've achieved, as well as our forecasts. You can see by the table on the right, we've been experiencing attrition of our non-faculty staff. We've been able to capitalize on this attrition because we have a plan for the future. Through Students First, we've been able to replace vacancies with lower cost positions aligned with our new design. For example, as vacancies occur among campus presidents, they've been replaced with lower cost campus CEOs. When brought to scale across the 12 campuses, this alone will save over $1.5 million annually with fringe benefits. And these are recurring savings. They build cumulatively into the out years. By unifying into one college, we eliminate duplicated positions across the 12 campuses as vacancies occur. And through Students First, we are implementing shared services for back office functions like human resources and purchasing, allowing us to achieve economies of scale. I'd like to stop here and turn things over to Dr. Michael Rook, our interim provost.
Thank you, Kerry. Good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Michael Rook. I'm the interim provost for Connecticut State Community College, and I'm also proud to serve as the president of Northwestern Connecticut Community College. I want to focus briefly on a critically important part of becoming a single college, aligning the curriculum. A single college cannot have 12 different versions of every degree program, and it cannot have 12 different general education requirements as we do now. So our team has started working with faculty beginning in 2018, aligning the programs, the certificates, and all of our courses. When we began, we had over 650 different degree programs, 350 certificates, and over 4,000 different courses, often with the same title, but with different prerequisites. This makes it extremely difficult for a student to take classes whenever they need to move from one college to another. This is especially true this past year as more courses were offered online due to the pandemic. To use our criminal justice degree as an example, we had 18 different criminal justice career and transfer programs across the 12 colleges. We had 12 different transfer articulation pathways to the state universities. After we've completed the alignment, we will have a single career criminal justice degree program, and we will have a single transfer articulation pathway, making it much easier for our students, since all of the courses will be offered at all of the campuses, and it will be much easier to build transfer articulation pathways and maintain those pathways to the university. We've included for your review later a testimonial from Middlesex Community College Criminal Justice Program Coordinator, Professor Rebecca Riss-Brown. The 12 criminal justice coordinators worked tirelessly for months to come to an agreement on what a standardized criminal justice program could look like, but allow for some variation from campus to campus to align with the local needs and the career goals of the students. The 12 coordinators have recently proposed this new program that contains a set of aligned courses, all meeting the same learning objectives and having the same prerequisites. This kind of work is going on in many, many other discipline areas, but it is difficult work. It requires a lot of discussion and collegiality. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank the many hundreds of faculty from all over the college system for doing this very difficult work. It will make a tremendous difference for our students. Our critics say that faculty are losing control over the curriculum. That is simply not correct. For the past 2 years, a shared governance body made up of faculty and staff from many of the colleges have developed a shared governance process that is shown on the screen. This diagram shows the flow of new curriculum proposals in the new college, originating directly from the faculty through a process that is aligned with NETU standards. All new curriculum gets initiated by individual or groups of faculty, whether for all of the campuses or from a single campus, and move through a statewide curriculum congress review body, and then eventually to the Board of Regents. You have seen many examples of the work that a large and dedicated team from the community colleges have already completed. You have heard how this will improve access and opportunities for our students, the ones that we ultimately serve, and our reasons for doing this difficult work. However, we cannot finish this important, difficult process without becoming a single community college. All of the examples and reasons that we have shared all require that the 12 colleges be accredited as a single Connecticut State Community College. None of these visions can be fully realized without this last critical step. On the screen are some very tangible examples of the progress that's been made that shows why we need to become Connecticut State Community College. As 12 separate colleges, we will always be structured to do everything 12 different ways. For the last 50 years, that is how we have operated, and it has created these systemic structural inequities which hold back the people of Connecticut, especially those who truly need us, from realizing their full educational potential. Later, you may hear from those who are opposed to this change that we can achieve all of this by keeping the same fragmented, inefficient structure. I ask you, how likely is it that if we keep things the same, that any change at all will happen? These are the critical steps that have taken place already at NETU's direction to start acting as if we are a single college, to build a new college alongside our existing colleges and maintain our 12 separate accreditations while we do so. We have completed or nearly completed all of these things and many other examples besides. But we cannot fully implement any of this change without a single OPEID from the US Department of Education and a formal single institutional accreditation from NETU. It is now my pleasure to turn the presentation over to Dr. Duncan Harris, CEO of Capital Community College. Duncan.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. G. Duncan Harris, and I'm the CEO of Community College. Please hear the we are in the 25th year of service to our state's community college system. And my last 3 years at Capital Community College. My advocacy for the merger is not only as an administrator, but also as a citizen, born and raised in the state that is currently without merging. I believe that the new college will leverage the power of scale, ensure that the fiscal continuity and stability of colleges like mine are this one of the CEOs there are currently 5 permanent CEOs in place and 5 searches underway that will be completed this spring. The transition of the campus executive officer role from president to CEO was one of the first administrative changes implemented in the merger. I'm hopeful that I can address concerns raised that the merger will reduce and so the new community and to develop partnerships.
Dr. Harris, your audio is coming in. It's really bad for 5 seconds, good for 10 seconds, bad for 5 seconds, good for 10 seconds. And it's going back and forth since you started. I was wondering if there's a way maybe that you could call in. I'm trying to figure out a way to make sure that we can hear you okay.
Yeah, can you hear me fine now? I just
You're fine right now.
reduced, turned off. Okay, maybe there was something. That was some good stuff, Representative Elliott. Did you get all of that? Do you need me to back up?
I got bits and pieces, man. I got bits and pieces.
Okay. Okay, I won't go back too far. I know we're in the interest of time. But I do believe that our new college will let the rating in the red.
It's doing it again. I missed most of that.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. No, let me see. I guess I could call in.
I think when you look down at your notes, you're breaking up, but when you're looking directly at the computer screen, it seems to be coming in okay.
Oh, is that it? Okay. How is that? Is that good? Is that a little better?
That's good.
Okay. Okay. So I'll talk straight ahead then. I'm hopeful that I can address some of the concerns raised that the merger will reduce our colleges and CEOs' ability to meet the nuanced needs of the communities within which it are conditions with our K-12 partners, community-based organizations, and employers. My experience has been just the opposite. All of these relationships are
Mr. Harris?
Yep.
I really feel that your testimony is not it's not going to serve you well. I think you need to call in and
Got it. Okay.
I really do.
I apologize for
interrupting. My apologies.
I apologize for interrupting. As someone who's just observing, I noticed that when Representative Elliott unmutes and keeps his microphone on, CEO Harris's audio comes through more clearly. So Representative Elliott, you might wish to try keeping your line open, not yourself, and see if that works.
Sure.
Any better? That any better?
Duncan, can I suggest you drop your video and let's see, and to Jeannie's suggestion,
okay.
Representative Elliott, if you're not muted, it was better. Can't imagine
how is that?
I don't know. I don't know if my muting or if looking directly at the screen is going to fix it. I think it's just the internet that he's got. But let's try the video off and go from there.
Okay. How is that?
No, still losing you a little bit, Doctor.
Okay, my deepest apologies. How about that? Is that any better? I turned
to hear you now. The problem volume. Is, we'll touch base with you in a few seconds if it goes bad, but go right ahead.
Okay. My apologies once again. I'm hopeful that I can address the concerns raised that the merger will reduce our colleges and CEOs' ability to need partnerships.
No, it's not working this way either.
Okay.
Can we maybe have you log off, log back on, and move on to the next person and then bring you back?
Certainly.
Okay, why don't we do that?
Sounds good. My apologies.
No, all good. It happens. All right, who is going next in the order?
I'll be going next. I'm Eileen Peltier. I'm the Chief Regional Workforce Development Officer in the Northwest region. And I hope everyone can hear me okay.
Sure
Okay,
can.
great. My Northwest region is highlighted here on this slide in red. I have two colleagues who hold the same position. Dr. Christina Testabuzzi is in the Shoreline West region. The campus is in blue. And my colleague Diane Bordenaro in the Capital East region, which is in green. Between the three of us, we represent all 12 community colleges. And it is important for me to point out that we work with mainly non-credit workforce training that is not constrained by many of the regulations we've heard about on the credit side. So now I'd like to share some examples of regional workforce development innovations with you this morning. Regionalization has made it possible to share resources and open seats between campuses. For example, we have students at Tunxus who are using the Advanced Manufacturing Technology Center at Asnuntuck until the new Tunxus Manufacturing Center is up and running. Additionally, we are able to open up programs so that students from different campuses can take the same online course. This prevents the colleges from canceling classes due to low enrollment and allows us to serve more students. I will say, though, that having students from more than one campus in an online class currently requires a great deal of manual labor and setup, and we are limited in the number of workforce classes that we can open up in this way. We in workforce development look forward to the One College so that all classes are accessible to all students. We will be able to serve more students in every corner of the state and bring in more revenue. By being regionalized, we are able to easily replicate successful models between campuses, such as our apprenticeship model using Department of Labor funds to pay for incumbent workers' salaries and tuition. When we become one college, employers will have an easier, streamlined process with just one contract needed to access all 12 campuses. Currently, it's one contract and the associated paperwork per campus. Our workforce development training programs lead to industry-recognized credentials that are valued by employers. We, my colleagues and I, are in the process of evaluating and aligning the credentials offered across the campuses to ensure that we are offering the credentials that employers value most. This does mean, though, working with 12 different campuses. Once we are one college, we will be able to move much faster and be even more responsive to the needs of employers and job seekers. My two colleagues and I started our positions in July 2020, and were able to turn on a dime to produce grant proposals for Capital Workforce Partners, our Workforce Development Board in the Hartford area, and the Governor's Workforce Council in August for training that began this fall. This would not have been possible if 12 individual campuses were trying to coordinate a response. In our first 6 months on the job, we were integral to raising more than $6 million in grant funding. We are stronger together. In the past, the colleges were incentivized to compete against each other for funding and other resources. Once we are a single institution, we will be able to leverage our strength and our size to secure even larger grants and to serve many more students. So at your leisure, please read these two testimonials. One is from Alex Johnson, the president and CEO of Capital Workforce Partners, and one is from Bernie Park, a member of the Governor's Workforce Council. Both have commented very favorably on the ease of working with 3 regional contacts rather than 12 individual campuses, a process that will be even more efficient and effective when we are one college. So thank you very much. I don't know if Duncan's back, but I'll turn it over to him if he is.
I am back.
Welcome back.
That sounds like a commercial from the 80s. Can you hear me now, or 90s, what have you? Is that any better? Yeah, my deepest apologies on that. And I switched to my Mac. And so I'll pick up. I was one of the first class of CEOs within our system, hired in 2018. And so at that time, and I'll be completing my 3rd year in the role this July. There are currently 5 permanent CEOs in place and 5 searches underway that will be completed this spring. The transition of the campus executive officer role from president to CEO was one of the first administrative changes implemented in the merger. I'm hopeful that I can address concerns raised that the merger will reduce our colleges and CEOs' ability to meet the nuanced needs of the communities within which we exist and compromise our ability to develop partnerships and coalitions with our K-12 partners, community-based organizations, and employers. My experience has been just the opposite. All of these relationships are core in the health and vitality of our campuses and tied to the goals linked to what I refer to affectionately as the big E's: enrollment, equity, and employment. All of our colleges share a common middle name, community, and the net result of the merger will be an improved ability to support our students and communities. It will not compromise or diminish our success in this area, as has been suggested. With regard to enrollment, Capital's partnership with the Hartford Public School System and neighboring systems is a key cog in our enrollment strategy. This past year, in light of the pandemic, I worked closely with Hartford Public Schools to quickly develop a dual enrollment program that offered more college credit options for AP students that had fewer options planned due to the pandemic. I also co-chair Achieve Hartford's All-In Coalition, an initiative sponsored by Travelers that will ensure 300 graduating seniors from Hartford, East Hartford, and Bloomfield graduate with a plan that includes enrollment in college or a workforce-related program or certificate. All of the CEOs have been engaged in similar work with our K-12 partners. The merger gives us the ability to truly prioritize these types of partnerships, which are the hallmark of our community colleges. Regarding equity, I'd imagine you're all aware of the level of food insecurity that experienced by our students. This was magnified during the pandemic. Throughout the pandemic, I can assure you we provided food to all of our students via safe pickup options and drop-off options. I currently serve on the board of the Connecticut Food Bank and Food Share and have been involved with the establishment of pantries on 2 of our campuses. With the recent merger of Connecticut Food Bank and Food Share and the movement to one college, we now have the potential for one blanket MOU and best practice sharing across the state to address food security gaps experienced by our students. We've made significant progress in our ability to lock arms with community-based organizations. The merger will help facilitate these incredible opportunities, not just at the local level, but also at the regional and statewide levels. The final biggie, employment. In July of 2019, I was appointed to our local workforce investment board, Capital Workforce Partners. In this role, I have the opportunity to connect workforce employment needs of our region to the work of the college. This work has become even more critical during the pandemic as members of our community find themselves seeking new career opportunities. I'm pleased to share that Capital will be launching a certificate program in manufacturing this spring in partnership with Capital Workforce Partners. The classes will take place at Capital and the hands-on component will occur at Prince Tech High School. Our Hartford area legislators are thrilled with the fact that we're bringing manufacturing training back to Hartford, and the residents of the city will not have to go to surrounding towns to have access to this life-changing career opportunity in the sector. Once again, while there has been great progress, there have been opportunities that I and my fellow CEOs haven't been able to leverage that I believe would be in place now had we been further along with our merger plans. In closing, you may say, well, you're doing all these things now. How does this improve in a one college model? This year, especially in light of the 2 pandemics faced in 2020, I've been very public about articulating Capital's interest and obligation in doing more and better in this difficult work.
Thank you, Doctor. If you're done, I just want to pause really quickly just to make a quick comment about the time. So it's 10:20 right now. The BOR's time is set to end at 10:30. What I would ask is of Netchi, and man, I hate putting you on the spot like this, but if we could give the BOR an additional half hour, only because I think that there's some more presenters, and I know I'm getting a bunch of comments from the committee that want to ask questions. If you have a hard stop, I totally understand. And if you don't feel that a half hour would be enough, could we just spend a quick minute just figuring out how we want to spend the next hour and 40 minutes split between or hour and 10 minutes split between the 2 of you? Because I know the professors are going last, so that really only leaves the professors with that extra time space at the end. All right, why don't we do this? Why don't we, go ahead.
This is Pat O'Brien from NETCHI, and Larry Shaw, our president, is here. Larry, did you want to?
So tell me when you think you'd like us to be ready.
So if you could be ready at 11 instead of 10:30, would that be okay? And then we'll give you a half hour instead of an hour.
That's fine for us.
And Ranking Member Haynes and Senator Whitcoast, just want to run this by you, make sure that's okay. We're talking by text too, so even though they aren't saying anything, I'm going to go ahead and make the executive
That's
judgment.
fine.
That what? Okay, thank you. All right.
And
so-
Representative Elliott, this is Allison Buckley. We're almost finished with our presentation as well. We just
Okay.
have,
That's
So-
correct.
Yes, we just.
About
yeah, we're
5 more
almost-
minutes.
Oh, perfect. So we'll remain flexible in the next 35 or so minutes, knowing that NETCHI is okay, pushing it back a little bit. Just wanted to jump in there. I only wasted about 2 minutes of our time. Go right ahead and finish up.
Super. Well, thank you so much. And thank you all for your time this morning. I just want to reiterate that none of what we've been discussing would be possible without merging the 12 colleges into Connecticut State Community College. Again, thank you so much. It's now my pleasure to hand it over to Dr. Gates, who will offer some closing comments. Dr. Gates.
Thank you, Dr. Levinson, and to the entire wonderful team you heard from today. As is so evident, each member of the Connecticut State Community College team, both those you heard from today and beyond, is steadfastly committed to the success of our students. Student success really is the center of everything we do. As you've heard, the merger, once completed, will accomplish 2 central goals. First, improving equity and student success, and secondly, improving the fiscal picture of the college, allowing us to keep all locations open and fully operational. I want to be very clear. You will hear today from opponents of the merger. While I really respect each of them, and I say that sincerely, you will hear arguments that simply do not appreciate our need for change. You will be told that the promised savings will not be achieved, or that the merger will somehow cost more than the current duplicative structure. You will be told that the national best practices, evidence-based best practices that we're pursuing will not help our students. None of that is true. We presented detailed financial outlines that show, despite unforeseeable events like the pandemic, our finance team's projections to date have been remarkably accurate, and we remain on track to deliver the promised savings. We presented a vision for a college that removes unnecessary bureaucratic barriers and redirects resources to the tools students need to succeed. And just one final word before we take your questions. Our team is more than happy to provide regular, detailed updates to this committee. We believe in openness and transparency throughout this complex process. However, what you're seeing today is not the airing of 2 competing visions for the future of the community colleges. In the 4 years since the merger was originally proposed, there have been precisely no alternatives presented. So what you're seeing today is a choice between a vibrant future community college that better serves our students versus the status quo. And not the status quo of today, where we have already achieved some savings, but the status quo of 4 years ago, where the closure of 1 or more likely more campuses appeared imminent, and there was no comprehensive plan to help our students succeed. Historically, we have overpromised in our mission statements and under-delivered. There is only one choice. We can, we must, and we will launch Connecticut State Community College in the fall of 2023. Thank you so very much for your time, and our team is happy to answer any questions you may have.
Sorry, I got a call just as you were finishing, Dr. Gates. Okay, so thank you all so much for your time, and I'd like to open it up to questions from the committee. I saw first we had Senator Austin with her hand up, and then next we'll move to Representative Turco. Go right ahead, Senator.
Thank you very much. I actually have a very simple question. Is there a possibility that we can get a copy of the presentation that was given? That's all I need to know. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator. We can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. Representative Turco, followed by Representative Vale.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I know we have limited time for questions, and I have quite a few. But let me, Dr. Gates, thank you for you and all of your team in the presentation today. And I truly believe in your wrap up, as you said, that everyone here and everyone in your department has the best interest of the students in mind and our complete system with trying to implement students first. So I believe that is the foundation. But I'm very concerned with the lack of the faculty buy-in and the discontent, and even from students that have testified and emailed us with their concerns over the implementation of Students First. Its goals are great, and we want to head in that direction with all of the benefits you said it will deliver. So looking over the Baldwin report, I'm hoping you can tell me, where, and your own internal conversations, where do you think things have gone wrong in the implementation of this that should have been done better, even if the merits of this are what we need? And what will you do now going forward to correct those past mistakes, get faculty buy-in, and make sure there's more coordination and collaboration going forward, and make some of the corrections that this report mentions? Because I certainly think you've done a lot well with this implementation, but there's certainly areas that haven't gone so well, and that's evident in such strong faculty discontent. And for this to work smoothly, and for the legislature not to have to get further involved with regulation, we need some positive changes from your end. So maybe you can provide that for us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the question. From my perspective, what we perhaps could have done better was more communication. But I think as I look back, change management is extremely, it's a difficult situation. We've invited faculty, we've involved our faculty to engage, and they were very early on engaged. But as we moved to the Connecticut State Community College, I think Fran and others, and maybe Mike, can also speak to what we've done to reach out to our faculty members to ensure that they feel that they have buy-in, because that's really critical. Because quite frankly, having been a faculty member myself, faculty are the closest to our students. They're the ones who are absolutely essential to ensure that our students are successful in the classroom. So I think communication, and ownership, inviting more people to the table to engage with this would be what I would suggest moving forward, and just sharing as frequently as possible the same information we have collected that we've shown you today. So if I could have Mike speak to the things that we're currently doing to do exactly what you've said.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Gates. What I would say, and I'll turn it over to Fran if she wants to add, Dr. Rosselli. Change is very difficult. There's no doubt about it. Something of this magnitude is going to have people who are opposed to this amount of change. What I would emphasize, though, is I work with hundreds of faculty every day that are engaged in this work. I would point out that you're maybe hearing from a relatively small minority that are very vocal. And the faculty that I work with, we have hundreds of faculty engaged in many, many different disciplinary alignment committees, shared governance committees. And those faculty are working very, very hard in doing so, sometimes with a lot of pressure on them from their colleagues. So I'm going to pause there and then turn it over to either Mike or Fran, whoever would like to go next.
Thank you, Dr. Rook. Hi, everyone. Good morning. My name is Michael Stefanowicz, and I've been working on the consolidation on the merger since 2018. And Representative Turco, I appreciate your question. One of the things I do wish to highlight is that we have made changes to our process based on faculty input and feedback. So from the beginning, Provost Gates formed a consolidation committee, which included a number of people from the entire college community. And based on feedback, we added elected members, one from each college, to that group. We also added elected members to our General Education Committee and to our Shared Governance Work Group. All of the curriculum alignment faculty have been invited to participate in. And we have made changes as we've gone forward based on feedback, both from committee members and from public comment. When we initially created our general education core proposal, which was a common general education for the one college, we sent that out for public comment, and we had town halls. We went around and visited the 12 different colleges, and there were substantial changes made to that proposal based on that feedback. The same is happening with our governance proposal, which is undergoing finalization now. And Fran Rosselli can speak more to the curriculum alignment, but we continue to extend invitations to faculty and to staff to be involved in our efforts. Not all of the changes that people have asked for have gone through, much like legislating, right? This is a compromise, but many of them have. When sometimes I'm told that we are not listening or we're not making changes, and I would just disagree with that premise to some extent. So Dr. Rosselli, would you speak to some of the curriculum alignment to get faculty involved?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. My name is Francine Rosselli Navarra. I am the interim AVP for academic programs and curriculum on loan from Manchester Community College, where I'm a psychology professor. And my role in the merger has really been working with faculty on trying to align our curriculum across the 12 campuses so that we can have single programs with single degree requirements, so that we can incorporate the single gen ed, and so our gen eds don't differ by campus. And Representative Turco, I'm on the receiving end of a lot of the discontent, because it really does often surround the curriculum alignment work. And really what we've tried to do is just continue to be as open to faculty input and to continue to invite faculty in, while also respecting the fact that we know some faculty simply do not support the merger and they don't want to be involved. We respect that decision, but we do need to move this work forward. In the process of aligning the curriculum, we have multiple feedback loops built in. So we often start with a few faculty. So for example, we just recently sent out a number of English courses for public comment. Those were worked on, initially we had three volunteers. They started the work. Each of them brought in a few more individuals. They emailed all the department chairs at all of the campuses. They emailed our system-wide English faculty group, explained what they were doing, and asked for people to join them. They did get some volunteers from that, but still many people said no, they don't like consolidation and they didn't want to work on it. So they worked with this team of volunteers. They drafted some proposals, and then we sent them back out to all the English faculty who had said, we don't want to participate, and said, okay, well, here's people who did some work, and here's another opportunity. If you'd like to participate now, we welcome you in. We have gotten, again, some people coming forward and saying, okay, well, yeah, this is important. I'll do this work now. And we've had others who still say no. So I'm certainly open to suggestions if you have any other ideas of how to get people involved. As Dr. Gates said, we continue to just try to provide open communication and transparency in what we're doing, and to keep inviting people in.
What I would add, thank you, Dr. Rosselli, is that President Levinson and I and several others have done numerous town halls across the community colleges. We've probably attended at least half at this point, and we're planning on attending the other half over the next several months. We've also met with the Faculty Advisory Committee and continue to do so, and are happy to do so. So thank you.
Thank you for everyone's responses.
Thank you, Representative. Moving on, I see Representative Vale with a question, followed by Representative Haddad.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few, actually. So the community college has not received accreditation yet, is that correct?
That is the
That is
one
correct.
college that is correct.
And why is that, and when is that expected to happen?
We will have to submit a substantive change to our institutional accreditor, regional accreditor, NECHI. And upon that, upon their response, then we will be ready to open that college. And we are very much ensuring that we meet all the standards, the accreditation standards. I'm not doing that work currently, but that gives you a high-level overview. Mike, you or Dr. Levinson may speak to that as well.
Yeah, no, thank you, President Gates. We've been working very closely with NECHI throughout this process, and we want to make sure that we meet their standards, as they've asked us also to make sure that the existing 12 colleges meet their current standards too. So we've been working very closely, and you'll hear from them shortly. And our next step is to file a progress report in June. We look forward to their feedback. And then our hope is to file a substantive change proposal by the following spring. So part of it is working very closely with our creditors, but we feel we're certainly moving in a good direction.
And right now, as it stands, all the community colleges individually do have accreditation, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Someone mentioned earlier that, I forget which person on the board it was, but that there are people at Tunxus that take manufacturing classes at Nantucket right now. Is that correct? Is my understanding correct on that?
And if someone overseeing our academic programs could respond, I want to make sure that's the case.
I did mention that in my comments. So Tunxus Community College has a new manufacturing center that's currently under development, we'll say. So for the time being, for the hands-on portion, the students at Tunxus go over to Nantucket for the hands-on manufacturing machining part, and then take the theory at Tunxus.
So even as it stands right now, there is some level of interaction amongst the community college right now.
Yes, and I will say that's really been facilitated by the regional structure. That's, I think it's a taste of what could happen in the future. But before the regional structure, as I mentioned in my remarks, we really were not collaborating to this level. It's not that we didn't want to, but just the infrastructure wasn't there. So the regionalization has helped us to be able to make these kinds of, partnerships between the colleges.
And Representative Vale, good morning. This is Rob Steinmetz, the Capital East Regional President. And to add to that, we have also been able to expand sharing courses, particularly in an online environment during COVID, where we have opened seats at other campuses to start to build this collaboration that really was not possible before we gained a regional structure. But it is completely manual, and we're having to do a lot of back-end processes for each and every seat that's opened up that would become seamless as we move towards single accreditation for Connecticut State Community College. But yes, we're building on opportunities for more collaboration that did not exist before we started moving in this direction, but it is still very manual and limited in all of these examples that we have.
And one point of clarification, the manufacturing is non-credit. So we have to just make a distinction between credit bearing and non-credit bearing.
All right. To me, there's still an avenue. Like, I don't think you need to have this to be able to do that. And again, I understand there's different points of view on that, and that's fine. And how many of the board, I know, Dr. Gates, you said you were a former professor, and how many years were you a professor? And then on this board, how many people on this board actually have hands-on teaching experience?
Dr. Gates, you're muted.
I taught for well over 20 years. I moved up to professorial rank from instructor to full professor, tenured in 2 systems.
I also served as a full-time faculty member for many years at the University of Hartford and was promoted to associate professor before what I like to euphemistically say moved to the dark side. So thank you.
No, and same here. I was an associate professor at Massachusetts Bay Community College, have taught for full-time about 7 years, and continue teaching today in graduate programs like the community college program at Teachers College at Columbia.
I would add, this is Allison Buckley. While an administrator, I was previously in an academic position as the program coordinator for the American Studies program at the American College Dublin. And I have also taught at the Community College of Philadelphia, Delaware County Community College, Howard Community College.
And I taught for 9 years as an adjunct at Manchester, and I was also a counselor there for 10 years.
Yeah, and I have a background in student affairs for over 20 years with on-the-ground work with student activities and success, as well as teaching as an adjunct at 3 community colleges. I was also a registrar and did lots of on-the-ground work.
And again, so you guys should know that when we listened to really heartfelt testimony the other day with our professors that came up, and they have a legitimate issue with this, and they don't feel as if they're being heard. And you would have to agree with me that, you know, that they're the ones that have the most direct impact on these students. And these are community college is different. I attended Manchester Community College for several classes over the years, and it was great there, but it's a different dynamic. You know, you have some kids coming right out of high school in there. You have some people that are going in just to get 3 credits for one purpose. You have all these different diverse groups of people in there. But the most direct impact anyone had on me and the other students is that professor that's right in front of us. And it's very alarming to me that so many professors feel, and I think that you guys with your background would understand this better, that certainly there's some need for administrative people, but that the people that have the biggest effect are the people that are right in front the students every day. And for that many of them to come forward to us and say that they don't feel as if they have a voice, I kind of take their word for it more than I'm going to take the word of an administrator that says, yeah, we listen to them. They come up, and I think it's more than just a few. And I do think some have fear of retaliation. So whatever it may be, I'm concerned about this moving forward. And I feel like you guys are dismissing those concerns a little too easily. And it concerns me, especially with your backgrounds, having been a professor, and you'd be able to put yourself in their spots. They're seeing these kids every day, and they're saying, this isn't working. And I don't think you guys are doing a good enough job listening. And I would think based on your background, you would. And so, I have some concerns there. I found their testimony to be very, very heartfelt and genuine. I feel like the testimony I've heard today is a little bit more bureaucratic and just looking to kind of, I know you guys have a job to do. I know you have a purpose, but I'd like to see, I don't know. I have some concerns. I'll sit back. I'll listen to the rest of the meeting and see what other questions are asked. But I have grave concerns that we're not listening to those professors, and it gives me concerns about this whole consolidation in general. Thank you.
I'd just like to say that we are hearing them. I know many of those faculty members. I know many in the community colleges. They're very talented. They have the credentials. They're smart, and they are passionate advocates for their students. We understand that. But what has happened over the past 10 years has not best served the interests. The whole community college mission has changed over time. And I think that can be addressed. It isn't just access. Now we're asked to focus on outcomes. So if those outcomes are not shown in the data, that's something we must work on. And I'm very willing. I am going just the 12th. I'll be speaking to a group of faculty members in math at the community colleges. I speak to the FAC. I'm willing to speak to any of our faculty members who want to talk and speak to me, and we are listening, and we have made modifications. So we definitely are listening, and we value faculty and what they do, having been in their shoes and have lots of wonderful mentors, students who are mentors. Thank you, though, for your comments.
And just one last comment based on that. There's a lot of people that you talk about, you have to meet these criteria. There's a lot of people that go to community college that don't go with any intention of getting an associate's degree. And so that needs to be factored in. I went for a coaching certification. I got it. I achieved the goal on that specific thing. That's not going to show in your statistics. So that needs to be recognized. And so I don't know who's putting that pressure on you to meet these things, but there's a lot of different people. Real estate classes. We talked about all this the other day. It's different. It's apples and oranges. And so that stuff needs to be taken into consideration.
Sir, we have taken that into consideration, Representative. If one would go to the website for the system, you will see data that refers to Student Achievement Measure, and we call it SAM. While the federal government doesn't acknowledge, they only look at first-time, full-time students, iPads, and eligibility for dollars from the federal government. But we have included another set of data that show students who transfer to the community colleges. We're showing all of that. Students who've completed in certificates. We're doing exactly what you're saying to ensure that we are capturing the accuracy of what is going on at our wonderful community colleges. So I agree with you. I know individuals go for specific things, and I understand that. But we too must meet federal regulations and guidelines to ensure that our students can financially support themselves when they enroll in our institutions. Thank you.
And Representative Vail, at the beginning of the presentation, you heard where we ranked, and that's comparing us against other community colleges. And so it is not comparing an expectation that 100% of our students have a goal of receiving an associate degree. It's comparing us against similar institutions that have students who, you're absolutely right, have many different types of goals. So that's why we're never looking for 100% completion rate, but we cannot accept that our current completion rate is acceptable compared to similar types of institutions with similar types of students, particularly as we look at our outcomes related to African American and Latinx students.
Thank you so much. Representative Vail, if you have extra questions, could we just push them back? We have four, okay, because we have 4 more people in about 12 more minutes. Senator Lopes, I know you have to go at 10:50, ask your questions, and Representative Haddad.
Thank you, Representative. Unfortunately, I'll have to condense this very, very quickly. And Dr. Gates and staff, I do apologize, but we are going to bang this drum until the message is very clear. Systemic change, as one of your colleagues said earlier, is very difficult. Everyone understands that. There's pushback. Systemic change in an educational institution without faculty buy-in, I am going to say, is virtually impossible at this point. It is a matter of whether or not we have confidence in you as administrators to make this change. You've argued a very clear case that change needs to be made in this system. What I think you're missing is many of us do not have any confidence that the change you are making is correct, adequate, or even just. And every time I hear something, it goes to the negative of these changes, not to the positive of these changes. For example, we're going through these difficult changes, you're getting pushback from faculty that they're not part of the process, and then the contracts, their union contracts come redo, and frankly, some of the stuff in there was insulting to their profession and what we expect in the educational contracts. So I even took umbrage on your opening statements when you said this change must and will happen. Frankly, that is not your decision. That is our decision. You know, we will decide whether or not this type of change will go forward, or we will scrap this change and move forward with a different type of change. you know, it brings out a lot of passion in a lot of us. And a lot of us are very frustrated because I've been here long enough to see multiple changes in this system. And every time we have a change, things don't get better. And this change seems to be heading in a direction that is very scary. And I don't want to have to be part of a movement to scrap it all and start again from scratch. But that is becoming a reality, a possibility, because of the pushback and the lack of faculty buy-in to this change system. So please take Representative Vale's comments, my comments into consideration. You're facing a lack of confidence among legislators in what you are trying to do. So I do want to see this process move forward. I do want to see some success and achievement for these community colleges, but there's definite lack of confidence in what is going on at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator. And I hear your comments and appreciate them. Thank you.
All right, moving on. Thank you, Senator. Representative Haddad, followed by Representative Haynes.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. You know, as the former chair of this committee and of the Oversight Committee, I've been more than a close observer of this process for the last 3 years. We're 3 years into this change. I had a couple of specific questions and then a couple of comments. You said that you were applying to NETCHE for a substantive change. My recollection is that they had requested that you apply for accreditation as a new university. Are those things different, or a new college? Are those things different?
Yes, they are different, but with further discussion with NETCHE, they and us, we both agreed that substantive change would work and not as a new institution.
Right. And just so I'm clear on that, that's a discussion with the staff at NETCHE, right? Wasn't it the actual board at NETCHE that originally turned around the substantive change application in the first time the system made that application?
Yeah, I had served as a NETCHE commissioner for 6 years, and the initial application we made, which was discussed by the commission, did say to us that we were not ready for that magnitude of change. That's clearly the case. And what we do is, our communication during the years with staff members of NETCHE, and then the commission provides its own rendering. So for example, in this June, we've been working with the staff to make sure we're addressing all of the issues they raised in the last letter. And then it will go to the commission for discussion and for a result or feedback in June. So there is the separate interplay with the commission itself, which are a body of about 30 some odd volunteers and also staff of NETCHE.
Okay, thank you. And so you plan on making that application about a year from now or 2 years from now?
A year from now. What our anticipated day would be to do the substantive change next spring. We'd like to start admitting students into the college come the fall of 2022, and then become fully operational by August of 23.
The reason why I ask the question, frankly, is because when I sit here and I listen to these presentations, I've seen a growing number of people with the word interim in front of their title. It's clearer and clearer that NETCHE's guidance to you, which is to create an administrative structure for the single college, has required significant investment of resources at the central office for what it's my impression is a duplicative administrative layer. It's in addition to the administrative layer that already exists at the 12 institutions. And so now we're being asked to fund and to maintain an administrative structure at each of the 12 colleges, and also another administrative layer for the single college. And I understand that that's basically the guidance that NETCHE has provided and the one that you're following. But that investment only pays off if you're able to accomplish the goal of achieving accreditation for the single college. What I see as one of the most significant impediments to that is the hard work that Dr. Rook had mentioned of consolidating the program, the number of programs. I think you said there were 650 academic programs. And I'd like to see, you can talk about it briefly now, there's only a couple minutes left, but I'd like to see a timeline for progress on that work with benchmarks so that we can know with confidence that in a year, you will have done the work necessary with the faculty involvement required to consolidate those academic programs. Last, I'll just say this, and we're really running short on time, and so some of these aren't going to be questions as I had hoped they would be. I want to sort of just share that in the 4 years that I was chair of this committee, I've heard students first spoken positively about only in these presentations by your administration. I think I took one single meeting with two professors who came in to talk to me positively about this proposal. I've been contacted literally by hundreds of professors through the system who work at community colleges and elsewhere in your system in opposition to this change. And I think that that's the headwind that you face as you try to make the academic changes with their involvement, and not just their involvement, but I think the academic, the NETCHI standard is that the faculty are primarily responsible, right? Primarily responsible for the content, the quality, and the effectiveness of the curriculum. So I worry about the status of that work. Just the volume of work that has to be accomplished before you can make your application. And I worry about how NETCHI views the academic and faculty involvement in that work. Knowing what I know, what I think I know is that you are really understating the opposition among faculty to these plans. So that's my big concern, and I think that you've heard that from two of my fellow colleagues. I don't know if you have any final comments to make about those comments, but I'm not going to ask any additional questions in the interest of time. I know that some of my colleagues have other things that they want to say, but that would be my concern at this point. I would describe myself as a skeptic about your ability to pull this off in the time frame that you're outlining, but I guess only time will tell.
Representative Haddad, what I would share with you is we're happy to provide that information to you about which programs have already completed. Many of them are going through the approval process this spring, and we expect to be concluding around December of 2021. And we would love to have any of our legislators join some of our faculty meetings and to hear some of those positive thoughts.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Representative Haddad. We have about 3 minutes left. We'll remind people that we're already a half hour into NETCHI's time. So go right ahead, Representative Haynes, and it looks like we'll finish off with Senator Slapp.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of you that are here today to talk to us about what's going on. I guess some of mine is, as my former colleague just said, will be comment versus question, but I'm going to hit up one question right off the bat. The governor's budget in 2017 was $30 million. And this year we're looking at a budget item for you of $69 million. That's a problem because you guys were put in place to save money and consolidate and make it better. I understand that you have to spend to make it, but that's, I think, one of the big elephants in the room. Yesterday, and I'll ask you to answer that, but I'll just give you my comments. Yesterday, I actually had a wonderful conversation with 4 different graduating seniors from Southern. And I believe at least 2 or 3 of them were transfers from community college. They could not say enough about how wonderful the community college system was to them. So this was probably 2 years ago when they were there because they're seniors now in Southern. They said that the support they received from the faculty was amazing. The opportunities for jobs and internships and just camaraderie with the faculty was incredible. So you've already, and we've already said how wonderful faculty are and how important they are to the success of your consolidation, your merger, et cetera. So we do have to keep in mind that they are your first responders. They are the people that are going to deliver the program. And because they haven't bought in, I think there's a trust factor here, whether it's the communication, as you suggested, Dr. Gates, or something else. You have to get these people back on board. I mean, you really do, as far as this goes and what's going on with this. The academic consolidation that you're talking about doing, I think makes sense, absolutely makes sense. At the same time, we have to be careful that we're not losing the autonomy of the different universities and the different colleges, community colleges. The system consolidation, the online, as a student, when I go in and I want to sign up for courses, whether I'm going to one campus or another, or whether I have financial aid or whatever, that I can absolutely see as being a positive, for the simple fact of, being able to just get through as a student. So, I mean, I get that part, but I think we have to look at these, how they're serving the students. And that is just, I mean, we just finished a reconsolidation of our DMV, right? How many years have we in Connecticut dealt with DMV and the problems with DMV? And now we have a great online system, supposedly. We don't know yet. We haven't, not tried and true yet. That's fine, but that's all administrative. So I think those are my comments. Again, I only have probably a minute and a half left to give to somebody else, but I appreciate what you're trying to do here. But I do think, to all my colleagues that, the faculty, you really got to start talking to them and find out what the heck is going on, because this is not, and with a double more than 50% increase in budget, and we've got the problems that we have now. Yeah, there's huge concerns. So thank you again. I appreciate the information and your budget conversation that you had with us this morning. Way too quick. Would love to talk more about that, but appreciate you're here. And obviously we need 2 days to talk to you guys about all this. So thanks a lot. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative, and Senator Slapp, take as long as you want, with the recognition that we are short in time. Thank you.
I won't take long at all. Thank you to the panelists for coming in. Appreciate it. Good morning. And maybe this is a good way to put this this portion of the morning in a bow. I have 3 kind of rapid fire questions. I'll ask them all at once, and then I'll stop talking and listen. This is for any of the panelists. But we heard, as some of my colleagues repeated, the very passionate testimony of staff and faculty members, and it's apparent to us, I think, that the hearts and minds have not been won them. So my question is, what is the plan to win the hearts and minds of staff and faculty? That would be one question. What mistakes do you think were made, maybe, that help contribute to where we are now? And if those hearts and minds are not won, can Student First be successful? So I'll leave it there. Look forward to your comments, and thanks again for coming in.
Dr. Levinson?
Yes, let me address that. In terms of the hearts and minds, which I agree are very important, since I became involved in this initiative in the middle of May, and as Dr. Rook said, we've been meeting with all different faculty and staff groupings, Faculty Advisory Council, et cetera. And again, we have made a number of changes in what we're doing based upon faculty response. I think the mistakes, as Dr. Gates said earlier, could have communicated better. There were some really errors there. I think it was a reflection of the urgency that we face. Again, when 6 of our colleges are now in the negatives, we are very concerned about their accreditation and whether or not they can continue operating as independent institutions, which puts an urgency on the changes we make. And my hope is we can certainly unite the faculty and staff behind this endeavor. As a number of us have said, we have a lot of folks that we've been working with who have been very supportive, and we have gone out of our way and will continue to do so to listen to every and all people. There's a situation where we probably will not have 100% of the faculty and staff supporting this change, but again, we're driven by the data. And the data in terms of student outcomes, especially for Latinx and Black students, are abysmal. And to be quite honest, even for white students, when you look at a 22% completion rate, that is way below the national standard. So we are driven by the data, we're driven by the research. We want to make sure that people have the ability to succeed in their lives and in their jobs and with their families. And unfortunately, and again, you know, our faculty and staff are doing great work. It's not an individual problem, it's a structural problem. It's the structures we have which require so much time of our current CEOs and staff on what I would call administrivia. Reports galore to the feds, the state, you name it. And the idea behind this, and that's reflected in the guided pathways work, is to free up the staff and faculty at the colleges so they can be more student facing. And very important, have the CEOs focus on the local communities they serve, because we know, especially post-pandemic, that the trauma that our students have experienced and the problems of getting them back into the classroom really are going to rely on some strong community supports. So we feel we're positioned to move forward and to move forward in uncharted waters, because again, no one has ever figured out or anticipated the pandemic, and we have unfortunately a lot of uncertainties ahead. But we really feel by creating Connecticut State Community College, we will be equipped for the future.
Great. Senator?
No, thank you. Thanks for your answer. And Mr. Co-Chair, I'll hand it back to you.
Great. Thank you all so much. Thank you everybody for coming in. I think that because this is the first time that we've done this in a very long time, we spent a little more time on just the general understanding of the work that you're doing. So I think that next time we'll be able to get to questions a lot quicker. So I'm not too concerned about the structure that we had today. I will talk it out with the rest of the committee members just to make sure that we're not wasting anybody's time. But thank you again all for coming in.
Great. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folk from NETCHE, go right ahead. And I apologize for the delay.
Not a problem. Good to be with you. I'm here with Dr. Pat OBrien, our senior VP at NETCHE. We don't have a long presentation. I'll talk a little bit about who we are, what we do, but then I suspect you may have questions for us. So I'll make sure we leave time for that. So we are the regional accreditor for New England. We accredit the colleges and universities across the 6 New England states. And among those are the 12 community colleges in Connecticut. We have Pat and I are staff. There's 11 of us on staff, and we have 30 volunteer commissioners who are presidents, provosts, faculty members, public members across the 6 states. And that commission meets 4 or 5 times a year to hear requests for substantive changes. We'll talk about that. But also we have our institutions go through a very rigorous cycle of accreditation every 10 years with a 5-year check-in. We have 9 standards that have been adopted by our members. And again, those members include the public universities and community colleges in Connecticut. And the responsibility of each of the institutions that seeks to be accredited by NETCHE. And I will say that part of the obligation to receive federal financial aid funds is to be accredited by us up in New England. So that's certainly one of the reasons why schools come to be accredited, so their students can receive aid. But we have 9 standards. Those standards go from mission, making sure institutions clearly state what their mission is, planning and evaluation, organization and governance, the academic program, faculty, students, institutional resources, educational effectiveness. That's making sure that schools continue to assess what they're doing and the student success. And then the final one is integrity, transparency, and public disclosure. So as has been said, the 12 community colleges in Connecticut are individually accredited. They're all on different cycles in terms of when they appear before us. It's not that their 10-year comprehensive evaluations comes up collectively. They come up. We've seen some this year. We'll see some next year. What has been before us in a series of reports that the commission asked for is this progress that's being made in Connecticut to consolidate those 12 colleges. It's not our job to express an opinion about is this good public policy or bad public policy, but our job is to make sure that when that request comes to us to consolidate the 12, that the institution that will survive at the time of the request meets all 12 of our standards, meets all 9 of our standards. And so that's the process that we've been working with the system. At the same time is that we've got we continue to look at the health and the programs at the 12 community colleges and make sure that they remain in compliance with our 9 standards. Pat, anything you want to add before we let them start to ask questions?
No, thank you, Larry. Certainly happy to answer any questions that you have this morning.
Great, thank you both for being here. I'm taking over temporarily here for my co-chair, Representative Elliott. So I'm going to, look and see if my colleagues have any questions for you, and we will give folks an opportunity. I do see Representative Smith, and then followed by Representative Turco. Representative Smith, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for being here to answer our questions today. Appreciate it. As you've probably gathered from what you heard earlier, I've been on this committee. This is my 2nd session. I've heard a little bit last year as well as this year about this ongoing consolidation. And you could probably gather it's sort of been a tale of 2 constituencies for us here, in that we've heard sort of conflicting reports from the faculty and the administration. And I wonder whether or not in your process, it's something that you do in trying to gauge the degree of the involvement by the faculty and their level of buy-in to the process, whether you require, whether you do, or whether you recommend that there be some sort of a documentation, whether it be through surveys or some evaluation that's done on behalf of the faculty to assess their level of engagement and their buy-in to the whole process and what the final outcome is going to look like.
Right. So when we get asked questions, we go to our standards. And so we have a standard on the academic program, a standard 4.6 that says the institution, in this case, this would be the new institution, the institution that does not yet exist, develops, approves, administers on a regular cycle, reviews its academic programs under institutional policies that are implemented by designated bodies with established channels of communication and control. Review of academic programs includes evidence of student success, program effectiveness, and incorporates an external perspective. Faculty have a substantive voice in these matters. It doesn't say faculty, the word buy-in does not appear in our standards. So yes, we will, the commission will, when this comes before them, and we do in the reports that we've asked for, want to see documentation the faculty have been provided an opportunity to have a substantive voice in the process, and that this has gone through that institutional policies and that have been implemented by designated bodies, has that there's evidence of that. So again, we don't, unlike I guess the seat you in, where you're trying to make a decision about whether to move forward with this or not move forward with this, and whether faculty have a have bought in or not bought in. We don't have a bought in standard. It's not one of our standards. But we have standards around ensuring that faculty have a voice on academic matters.
So thank you for that. So I take it though that from what you've just said with respect to the standards that you have, that it's really sort of incumbent, if not critical, on the part of the administration to ensure that the faculty all feel as though they've had the substantive kind of input that you'd be looking for documentation to show.
Well, so so you use the word that faculty feel like they have. Again, that's not in our standard. Our standard is that they've had the voice, and they've had the opportunity to have the voice. It's possible that people have given a voice and yet they don't feel like they've had the voice they wanted. Again, that's
sure. Okay.
I don't think the word feel shows up in our standards anywhere either.
Okay. But you require that there be evidence that they've had that voice.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And thank you, Netchi, for being here to answer our questions on this very important topic. I want to first just try to make sure I have a clear understanding of what the timeline and what the process is now. So what's the next step that the state of Connecticut needs to do in the accreditation process? Where are we exactly at with things?
Right. So they will be in front of us in June. Am I right, Pat? For with a report, not physically in front of us, but they will have to submit a report on their progress in June. And the commission will then provide feedback, as it has done a number of times, and could ask them to do another report in another period of time. Right now, we do not have a request in front of us to consolidate. What you sort of heard before was that there was a plan that they would bring that request next spring, but that request hasn't, that request is not in front of the commission at the moment.
Okay, and I apologize for the noise. My dog has decided it's a great time to chew loudly behind me, but that's working from home, right? So, all right, so there's no actual formal consolidation plan that's been presented to you for you to decide if it should receive accreditation?
I mean, yes and no. So there's a plan, and it's evolving plan that has been presented to the commission that the commission gives feedback on, but the request to create this new institution has yet to come. Is that a fair, Pat? Is that a fair?
Yes, the commission has heard several times from the Connecticut State Colleges and University System about its plans to create what is now called Connecticut State Community College. And so what the commission has not yet received, as Larry says, is a formal proposal for the commission to approve. The commission has been kept up to date on the plans and on the progress that has been made toward that end, but has not yet received the official request.
Okay, so they're going back and forth now to get recommendations to then make some changes, fine tune things, and then presenting you with updates, and then you're giving them additional recommendations. And that's sort of been the process now, which seems like it's a good process when you're hoping to, in the end, submit that formal proposal. You want to make sure you've taken care of all the concerns. So right. I like, what are the due dates here that the formal proposal has to be submitted, and when you will decide on accreditation?
Well, that's up to Connecticut. So we don't tell them they need to come in front of us. They need to get approval before they consolidate, but they could. The timing of when that request comes is up to them, and they need to be assured. They need to assure themselves that when they come, they've done everything they come, that they'll stand a likelihood of being successful in that request. So I think their hope is to bring that to us next spring.
Spring of 2022.
Right. That's not our timetable. That would be their timetable.
Sure, because at some point the accreditation on the individual community colleges, some of those probably expire, so they need to do this.
They don't expire. They have to be renewed every decade. And so we are, there's 12 of them. And so they, we every year or close to every year, we are seeing the requests to have their accreditation renewed individually. And that needs to continue until such time as there's another institution.
Well, thank you very much for helping me understand the process and the timeline. I'll turn it back over to Mr. Chairman for my colleagues for their questions. And I may have questions later on if there's time. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Turco. I don't see additional questions, but I'll give my colleagues, another minute. And while we're waiting to see if I do see Representative Ackert. Representative Ackert, the floor is yours. Good morning, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you for being here. I had the honor of being a trustee for the community colleges before I was elected more than a decade ago now to the state legislature. So I just want to make sure that obviously right now our community colleges are all in good standing and are accredited. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And I think they've been started in the 60s, and that's been something that, that's been a standard that, they have continually been accredited throughout the program with maybe some adjustments, but overall in good standing for all those years.
Yes, that's my understanding as well. That is correct.
Okay. Now, in this process that is now being looked at, is there similar systems that you have accredited throughout the country that have this many different campuses that would be made into one big campus or one big institution?
Right. So the question is, have we've certainly seen consolidations, we've seen mergers. Have we seen 12 merge to one? No.
Okay. Okay. All right. And right now our accreditation, you kind of said that you do about one a year. So it's not like you're not trying to accredit like 10 to 12 at a year right now, that they come in they roll in maybe a year, every other year, something along that line right now. And you said it's a 10-year reaccreditation, correct?
So the community, we accredit over 200 institutions across New England. So we're seeing a whole lot of a whole lot of schools that come up in front of us every year. But in terms of Connecticut, I don't know that the schedule's random, but it's, we do, all 12 of them do not come in any one year. That's for sure.
Each of them is on its own 10-year cycle. And so as their time comes for the comprehensive evaluation, they prepare their self-study, they have a visit by a visiting team, and then the commission considers the results of the evaluation. And so that happens for the 12 community colleges each on its own accreditation cycle.
Excellent. Well, thank you both for your answers, and thank you both for your time. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Haynes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate the opportunity to ask you some questions. I will ask one question in regards to the accreditation. You mentioned your standards and what you look for when you do the accreditations. Is there a financial picture part of the accreditation? And if so, what is the actual standard that you have in your list that would pertain to that?
Yes, so this is our standard 7, institutional resources, and it has 26 substandards. So there's a standard on human resources to make sure that schools are adequately staffed to fulfill its mission. There's a standard on financial resources, a substandard on financial resources, talking to make sure the institution is financially stable, has enough cash. There's a standard on information, physical, and technological resources. Make sure that the physical plant is taken care of, that the IT systems are functioning. We require audited statements. So there's a very elaborate financial analysis of the health of an institution to make sure that it has the financial resources to carry out its mission.
Okay, thank you for your answer. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to go a second time here. A question I thought of was, we have legislation in front of our committee in regards to allowing legislative control over the mergers or consolidation of our state universities and colleges. So if one of the community colleges was proposed by the system office to be closed or merged, the legislature would have final approval over that. It has been in testimony by the system office, they have said that that would hurt the accreditation process if the legislature would to take control over that process. This was, the legislature did previously have this authority and gave it up at some time. I've also been told that other states currently have this authority and continuously get their colleges and universities accredited by NETCHI without any issues. So maybe you could clarify that for me. Thank you.
So I'll go to our standards. This is standard 3 on organization and governance. And it doesn't, you know, the specific words that do not address this, the exact issue you're saying. It doesn't, the standard doesn't say whether a state could or could not have control. What it says is that the governing board is the legally constituted body responsible for the institution's quality and integrity, that they have sufficient autonomy and control to be held accountable to our standards, and that it can act in the institution's best interests. That's standard 3.3. Standard 3.7 requires the board to monitor the institution's fiscal condition, approves major initiatives. So it, that standard 3 requires that the governing board of an institution, whether it be a public or a private institution, can act in the best interests of the institution and has sufficient autonomy and control. So the question would be, if the legislature limits or removes some of that authority, would that comply with the standard? That would be a question for the commission to decide. I don't know whether, Pat, if we had, I have no recollection of this specifically coming in front of us.
No, I have no recollection that this specific question has come in before, but the commission has seen circumstances where there have been attempts to limit the authority of the legally constituted governing board. And in the case of the Connecticut community colleges, I believe that that is the Board of Regents.
Can you tell me if you have given accreditation to other states in New England's systems in cases where their legislature does have this authority?
I can't speak to that because I don't know the specifics of the legislation and the specific states that are involved. So it would, I wouldn't want to say one way or the other about that without knowing more.
Okay, and maybe we can continue this conversation offline. We can look into what some other states have done. Thank you so much for answering those questions.
Thank you, Representative. Let me follow up on that question. Maybe I'll try it kind of a different way, and I apologize if I'm kind of putting you on the spot here in an unfair question, but to either of you, do you know of, in your region that you accredit, do you know of other states that have state laws that put some kind of controls on consolidation?
I don't know. The honest answer is I don't know what other state laws exist.
So when you assess the accreditation for other institutions of higher education in other states, do you research or look into state laws that would impact the system's ability to that would limit, let's say, the system's ability to consolidate or close a campus, that kind of thing?
Pat, you want to pick that one up?
When the commission conducts a review, the institution prepares a self-study, which it addresses how and how well it meets the standards. And so if the institution were to include something about those state laws in its self-study, then those would be available to the commission. The commission does not independently study state law at the time that it reviews an institution.
So you grant accreditation without knowing, in some cases specifically, whether there's a state law that would prohibit consolidation, right? It sounds like that is the case, right? Because you don't require that information in order to grant approval or accreditation, right? You could do it without knowing whether a state has a law.
I think it is certainly possible that it could happen. Again, in preparing the self-study, the institution itself would have an understanding of the context in which it operates and the state laws that apply to it, and so would bring to the attention of the commission anything that it had discovered in that regard.
And then we send a visiting team out for multiple days, the better part of a week, to each institution. And that visiting team includes, would likely for a public institution, would likely include people connected to other public institutions in other states. And so when that team is charged with writing a report on standard 3, and so in the conversation about standard 3 with the institution, one would expect this to come up in the conversation. But as Pat said, we don't have a research arm that would go independently look for that issue.
Is it fair to say that if a state had a law like that and it was a deal breaker, that you could not grant accreditation if that law existed, that you would probably know about that?
Well, I'll go back to what I said. So it would be a question in front of the commission about whether that law or some other regulation or law made compliance with that standard, with standard 3, impossible. So the question would be, again, we go to the language, whether the governing board has sufficient autonomy and control to be held accountable for its standard and to ensure that it can act in the institution's best interests. And yeah, we're not in the business of predicting what the commission would decide, how a particular law got applied to a particular school. That's the standard that would get applied. Does it have sufficient autonomy and control, or has someone else removed such a significant piece of that autonomy and control that they no longer meet that standard?
Okay, I mean, the inference that I'm taking away is that it's not a deal breaker. I guess it's, I was once told the answer to every legal question is it depends, and so maybe that's the case here. But thank you very much. I won't, I don't want to pester you about this, but I do appreciate your responsiveness. Representative Smith, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for indulging me with a second question. I wanted to get back a little bit on the statement, Dr. Shaw, that you made about you haven't seen a consolidation of 12 institutions down to 1 previously, and put it in the context of the review that takes place every 10 years. My sister has been on a committee that does peer reviews for residential social service programs. So, and I know that these types of things can be very, intensive. As you said, several days, a team. And right now, here in Connecticut, 12 of those are happening every 10 years on whatever the schedule is for each individual institution. That'll get replaced with just once every 10 years for one institution, but one that has 12 physical plants. Each of which is going to need to be evaluated in its own right to make sure that they continuously comply with your standards. So does that sort of complicate that review process for NECHI? Obviously, does it mean 12 teams, and 12 times the scope, 12 times the number of days that the team is in Connecticut to do these reviews? I'm just curious to know how much will this complicate your lives?
Right. So accrediting a single institution with 12 locations is more complicated than accrediting a single institution with a single location. Maine, as you probably know, just consolidated its 6 public institutions, not community colleges, into one, and we will be working with them. And it's there's one team. There's not 12 teams. There's only one institution. So there'd be, and that institution would be on our 10-year cycle. Yes, but so more complicated than sort of a single institution with a single campus. Probably a little, less. You're not sending 12 teams in. So.
It's more complicated, but not 12 times as
not 12 times as more. Yeah, exactly. I don't know what the number would be, but it's not 12 and it's not 1.
Gotcha.
I think it's also fair to say that after the consolidation, the commission will visit the consolidated institution sooner than 10 years. Following a merger or a consolidation, there's an initial visit within 6 months, and then the commission has typically wanted to send another team in within a fairly short period of time, 2 or 3 years, to assess how the initial implementation is going. And then every institution that is on a 10-year cycle has a 5th-year check-in point. And it's possible, perhaps even likely, that the commission would say at the time of that 5th-year check-in, we're also going to send in a small team, because this is a complex consolidation that has happened, and the commission wants to have a good understanding of how the implementation is going to provide itself with the assurance that the quality of the new institution, the consolidated institution, remains high.
You sort of asked this question, have we seen 12? Now, so you're all familiar with New England. New England has 2 reasonably large states, Massachusetts and Connecticut, and 4 small ones. There aren't, Vermont is in the process of doing some consolidation. They don't have 12 schools. Maine didn't have 12, Rhode Island didn't have 12, New Hampshire doesn't have, I don't think New Hampshire's got 12. So Connecticut and Massachusetts are, are larger systems for us.
Got it. Well, that all makes perfect sense. And I guess I'm happy to hear that there's you don't wait 10 years after the consolidation, that there's a few touch points that are built into the process that really help evaluate the success of the consolidation earlier rather than later. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any other questions for Larry and Pat? I don't see any. So, with that, I think we do have your criteria, your standards, but it would always be good if you could send them to the committee, and we'll make sure that we get those distributed for everybody.
Happy to do that. They are those standards are online, netche.org, and
shall we send those to Jeannie? Is that the most effective way?
That would be great. Thank you.
Will do.
Okay. Well, have a great rest of your day. Thanks again for your time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Okay. Bye-bye. So we're moving to the final part of the agenda here, and it looks like I looked at the names. It looks like we have everybody. Are we ready to go?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So why don't I hand over to the team here and our panelists, and the floor is yours. Thanks again for coming in. Good to see you all.
Corina, should I start? I'm ready.
Absolutely. Sorry. Absolutely. And thank you for having us. And Estella, could you begin?
Sure. Absolutely. Good morning, and thank you so much for the opportunity to speak before all of you. I'm Dr. Estela Lopez, and I'm going to express my opinions regarding the consolidation based on knowledge, deep knowledge and experience, having worked at 3 systems, having worked at a campus, as an administrator, and also having worked at a community college here in Connecticut. I did go back as a provost in 2015 when the Board of Regents asked me to come and help. And I stayed under Mr. Ojekian also to support him. And I left when I realized that the plan to move into a new direction was not something that I could support. I need to talk also to you regarding the fact that I've served in many accreditation teams. I've visited complex systems, and chaired teams in Drexel University in California and in Puerto Rico. So again, I'm talking with knowledge and experience based on what administrative structures do. Here's the concern that I have, that a centralized administrative structure of a college or universities have as their principal responsibility, based on my experience, establishing policy and monitoring its implementation. They also provide specialized services, such as legal support and advocacy. But because they are not in the trenches, services dealing with the teaching and learning process, including faculty and students, that's not their strength in the operational side in supporting the direct teaching and learning process. System offices are at the top of a hierarchy that by nature is more effective working with its board to enact policy, monitoring progress towards system goals, and dealing with the legislature. Being removed from the direct services to students often lessens the importance of being responsive to their needs. A hierarchy that stands between those in the line of duty with direct contact with students and those at a system level does not increase student effectiveness or outcomes. To think that centralization or consolidation is a solution is to ignore the nature of what a community college is, as well as the important function of a system office. I also need to remind you, because it hasn't been mentioned, that we have experienced and results from mergers. The Chronicle of Higher Education did a study that looked at what happened in Georgia, and the unexpected lessons providing caution, including the most surprising and possible unwelcome lesson that mergers may not actually save money. After 6 years of consolidation, although some redundant positions were eliminated, the system discovered mergers needed additional positions to support the organization and meet accreditation expectations. So this is something that you need to be aware of, because they talk about saving resources, and that hasn't been the experience. Now, some of you have been very wisely asked the question about faculty support. And here's the thing that is not addressed in the consolidation, and in a way is the disingenuous use of a student first. The learning, the educational achievement happens in the classroom. You have wisely asked, how does consolidation impact the classroom experience? And I haven't heard an answer. That's where learning takes place. That's what research shows, and that's what learning happens with the interaction and engagement between faculty and students. That's why it's so concerning when faculty are saying to you, we don't believe in what's being done. We're being ignored. The other thing that is critical is something that is called validation, which is the direct services and support a student gets when they are in a campus. It is the validation of feeling welcome, feeling useful, feeling part of the community that happens through direct services and support. Those two things are critical in student success. Part of the data that was shared with you today ignores historical data and historical achievement that you need to be aware and remember. It's sort of like whatever it's happening, it happened without a background. It was not being done before. And to me, that's not accurate. I have worked with many of the presenters from the system office today. They were my colleagues, so I respect them, but I do have a different opinion. Let me talk to you, for example, about completion. And when Dr. Levinson talks about 22% completion, he is really ignoring something that Dr. Gain mentioned, which is the SAM data that shows that when students are followed beyond the community college, they are followed for persistence and see what happens to them when they graduate from other colleges and universities. The graduation rate increases to around 50%. For Norwalk, the data that I have, and I got it from the system office, is 54%, which is quite comparable to many comprehensive institutions. For Capital, it was 56%. It's also being ignored the fact that many of the community colleges have really increased the proportion and percentages of students of color. I can talk to you about Naugatuck Valley Community College that became a Hispanic serving institution in a number of years that the former president was there. When she arrived, it was like 13%. By the time she left, it was 30% Latino students. And the graduation and completion and success was improving every year because that was a priority. So when they talk to you about the achievement gap, they are ignoring the efforts that were being done, historical efforts that were being done to improve access, to improve completion, and to improve student success. Another data that was not accurate is Alison Buckley mentioned about 25% of the students taking dual credits. In 2005, when I was the Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, and we joined this National Clearinghouse, we discovered, which we didn't know at that time, that about 25% of the students from the community colleges were duly enrolled. At that time, it was happening naturally. And although once in a while I will get a complaint, it didn't require a consolidation effort that is so expensive and complicated to address dual enrollment. So dual enrollment is not a recent effort. It's something that has been happening for a number of years already. The students have been doing, and the colleges have been supporting it in ways that, again, don't require expensive consolidation. Guided pathways. When I was back as a provost, I supported guided pathway and make sure that the board were aware of what we were doing. Guided pathway, let me compare it to a GPS, okay? You're driving somewhere and you have a GPS and the GPS helps you to get to your destination. But the challenge is that in order to get to the next destination, you really need a car and you need gasoline. The GPS is a tool. The GPS is a strategy. Guided pathway is a strategy. It's not the thing that will lead to student success. That's faculty, that's the classroom setting, that's validation by campus, that's the support that the students get directly. My colleague, Duncan Harris, who I respect and I have worked with, he mentioned all the things that he's doing in the Hartford environment. When he was in Manchester, Manchester had a dual enrollment program that was a model for the nation, a dual enrollment program with Eastern Connecticut that was a model for the nation, very successful. Manchester and Naugatuck Valley Community Colleges have Gear Up grants to work with the public schools, East Hartford Public School Manchester and Naugatuck Valley with Waterbury Public School. So the things that he's talking and doing are things that have been going on and have been done by the campuses for many years. And again, they're being ignored like nothing has been happening. And therefore, this consolidation needs to happen. Guided pathway, you need to ask, what is the cost? How much does it cost? Because it's quite expensive to have that GPS. And again, I support it. I think it does make sense. When I was there, I supported it. And I think it's a valuable tool, strategy. The classroom is the critical thing. So when you talk about consolidation, you really need to ask the question of how does consolidation improve the classroom environment? How does consolidation help faculty to teach students and engage students in the learning process? Let me compare what they're talking about equity with a little bit of the rollout with the vaccine. I was fortunate enough, because I am knowledgeable and can do technology, and my husband is older, that I was able to get an appointment for a vaccine right away. But I can get into the break. My husband in January, he got vaccinated. When I went to get his vaccine, when I saw around, I didn't see people that look like me in that setting. And I realized right away that people of color were being left out. They were not being connected. And the data proved it. And what the hospitals had to do, and they have robust structures and robust systems, was really understand that they have to reach out and go to the communities, that they have to send vans and be at the community settings, that they have to connect with community people. And that's the reality for community college. It's not consolidation, it's being at the core of the community effort. One final comment and I'll stop. This administration, the Biden administration, is going to be very supportive of community colleges. Dr. Jill Biden teaches at a community college, she understands community college, and she wrote a dissertation on retention for community college. Her dissertation starts with a description of the classroom, because she understands that retention and learning happen at the classroom level. It will be very pitiful at a moment when the nation will be supportive of community college and highlighting the results that the community colleges in Connecticut are in such disarray. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Estella. And I know you have 3 other panelists with you. Do either of them want to say a few comments before we open up for questions? Yeah, go ahead, Kalina. Why don't we do that? And then Senator Anwar, we'll have you on deck for a question, okay?
Okay, and I'd like to introduce, so we have Jen Long will speak next, then Wayne Nat, and then I will last. So Jen is an English professor at Three Rivers Community College. She's a member of the Connecticut Coalition of English Teachers. She's an English faculty expert for the PA 1240 Council representing CSET. She's the curriculum leader of developmental English at Three Rivers. She's a member of the 2-year College English Association, and she's Three Rivers representative on FAC. Thanks, Jen. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Jennifer Long, professor of English at Three Rivers Community College. In 2012, Public Act 1240, an act concerning college readiness and completion, was passed by the Connecticut General Assembly with support of the Board of Regents. The legislation defines how developmental education must be provided to students. One goal of PA 1240 was to help students move into college-level courses in less time and more effectively. I'll begin by stating my praise for the collaborative successes between system office administration and faculty across the community college system created in the wake of the PA 1240 legislation. Our work led to more students placing directly into college composition and moving through their English courses at a faster rate than before. This work should not be ignored, and instead, we need to retain and expand upon it in place of the co-requisite model system office now proposes. Sadly, faculty voices and recommendations have not been heard in a meaningful way during this misguided consolidation process, and I regret to report that there should be no illusion of substantive input from faculty, because it would be just that, an illusion. I would welcome follow-up questions on this point. The vast majority of faculty oppose consolidation. The only few faculty who I know in the system who support consolidation are the ones who have been appointed into leadership roles, particularly at Manchester Community College. In fact, tomorrow, the Connecticut Coalition of English Teachers, which represents every English department in the system, will very likely vote to not participate in any curriculum design for guided pathways. Moreover, faculty senates across the system strongly oppose consolidation, as well as most staff members. The reason the faculty are more vocal is because we have the benefit of tenure. There is a narrative being promoted that PA 1240 failed to deliver on its stated outcomes. As the legislation was being debated, many faculty warned that without proper funding and ongoing institutional support, such a law would not help students as intended. In many places, PA 1240 was not equally funded, and the money is not equally allocated at many of the colleges. How then can one claim this initiative proved a failure when it was never truly funded in the intended fashion? We need to retain and improve on our current model and comply with the law instead of chasing down another top-down initiative the system office now proposes. One of the biggest frustrations for faculty is that nuanced data collection never took place systematically. Now, after pushing for PA 1240 legislation less than 10 years ago, the Board of Regents seeks to mandate a new model which they claim will improve equity. The bureaucratic and centralized co-requisite English model that our system office looks to push onto our community colleges will not provide meaningful equity, because equity does not mean offering everyone the same thing. Equity in English curriculum focuses on being student ready, meeting students where they are and giving them the skills they need to develop higher level thinking, reading, and writing skills. Developmental education is all about equity. It refuses to believe that we are content to ignore the needs of our most vulnerable and at-risk student populations. It refuses to pretend that when we talk about democracy, we don't have to consider that a democracy cannot function without a population that is able to understand the issues of the day and make informed decisions. Because all school districts in Connecticut are not funded equitably, the education students receive reinforces the educational equity gaps. What we do in developmental education bridges those gaps and offers access to all of our students. Many public schools fail to equip our students for reading demands beyond the elementary and middle school reading levels. As a result, our students struggle to comprehend complex texts, leaving them feeling as though they cannot do college level work, despite their ability to do so when appropriately supported. However, system office's planned elimination of developmental education will lead to a dramatic increase in early dropout rates for our most underprepared and marginalized students. In addition, the co-requisite model proves too restrictive to promote meaningful equity. If we eliminate developmental English programs and all students placed directly into a 3-credit college composition course, then underprepared students will be confronted with information that is dramatically outside of their comprehension, and meaningful learning will not occur. If we want an educated and informed citizenry, then we need to value and educate our academically underprepared community members in a meaningful way. States like Tennessee, Kentucky, and Florida, where system office looks for inspiration for its co-requisite model, also fail to list reading skills as an outcome in their college composition courses. The proposed co-requisite model situates developmental students in a one-room schoolhouse with college-level readers for a one-size-fits-all approach, which is the antithesis of equity. Not only does the proposed model fail to address our students' needs for reading instruction, but it also neglects the most fundamental and crucial part of research by eliminating the piloting process and instead implementing a sweeping, if not hasty, widespread change. The co-requisite managers have not given us models to review that are anywhere near as restrictive as the ones they are proposing here in Connecticut. Almost all the models retain or have some level of developmental instruction, including Bunker Hill Community College, the CUNY system, and the California, Florida, and Texas community colleges. Another negative side effect of this model is that college-level English faculty will likely be forced to lighten the rigor of our courses, either by design or out of necessity. In that instance, the overall integrity of Connecticut Community College English would be less rigorous than college composition courses at our 4-year state colleges. This creates equity gaps for students starting out at our more accessible institutions, a significant number of whom are people of color. I would like to introduce Wynette Arnhem, Assistant Registrar at Capital Community College.
Hello, I'm Wynette Arnhem, the Assistant Registrar at Capital Community College, and I've come to testify on behalf of our students and how the system office has inserted policies that are not working for our students. The system office has taken away the autonomy of all the 12 community colleges and issues demands that the colleges are made to follow, and are not given a say on how these demands affect our students. The BOR implemented a new not participating policy that has caused undue stress on our students, who already face many obstacles in front of them when trying to achieve their education. Students are told that they are being dropped 2 weeks into the semester if they don't show that they are participating in class or classes. The cookie cutter policy does not bode well for all students. Students have different reasons as to why they are not able to participate or presume not being able to participate. And here are a few student emails as an example. This particular student says, I believe this was a mistake. We just had a test for the class that I submitted yesterday. I do not understand how I can submit a test in the afternoon and receive this email at night. Another student says, I am in English 101 class for the spring. I just got here in the US and my primary language is French. I am trying to make myself as good as possible for reading and speaking. And I'm reaching out to you because I don't want to be dropped out of my class. I would like to be put back in my class. Another student goes on to say that she contacted her professor to tell her professor she misunderstood the syllabus. But yet, when she went to go to try to get into the class, she was told that she was dropped. Another student, lastly, says, hi, I'm not sure how I was dropped from my class, but I submitted my introduction for participation. I also completed, and I'm about to submit module 1 exam. He says, I just received a new laptop since my old laptop broke and I was trying to use my iPad. I would appreciate if I was re-enrolled back in my class. The other facts are that this policy is causing repetitive work of re-registering the students. And the students often have to go and do more work on their own because now to get back into their class, they have to get certain signatures, okay? Because of this one-size-fits-all model, the BOR now controls the freeze dates, which is now 3 weeks and a day before some of the students are reinstated into their classes or classes. Before the system office took the autonomy of the wiggle room away from the individual colleges, the colleges could freeze before the first day of withdrawal, which would count all registered students in the full-time enrollment numbers and the census report. Because the BOR new freeze dates, these students are not reinstated, are not counted in, that have been reinstated, are not counted in the full-time enrollment counts and are not part of the census in the higher education department report. And to make matters worse, during the spring 2021 registration period, an update to the MyComNet student self-service portal was not very well thought out by the systems office. Student registrations were not seen in their Blackboard accounts, which caused students to think that they were not registered, and for faculty not to know who were on their rosters. And this could be another contributor to the presumed assumption that students were not participating. I leave you all with this question. Who is thinking of our students? When policies are being developed outside of the expertise of those who have day-to-day contact with our students. Thank you.
Thanks. Hi, I'm Kalina C. Sanker. I'm a philosophy professor at Gateway Community College. I'm the chair of the Faculty Advisory Committee to the BOR, and in virtue of that, a member of the Academic and Student Affairs Committee of the board, non-voting. I also served on the Students First Academic and Student Affairs Committee for 2 years and on its shared governance work group for 2 years. So I want to begin by addressing something that was said in the first panel. Objectors have not said that abandoning Students First would solve our problems. What we have said is that Students First does not adequately address the problems that we do have, that it interrupts work done to address those problems, it interrupts existing collaboration across institutions, it ignores the input of those connected to our students, and it's expensive in both dollars and in the cost of what we will lose. Now, if the contrast between the first panel and the third is jarring to you, welcome to our world. The folks at the system office talk about our shiny new plan. They have beautiful graphs, but we in contact with students every day live in another universe entirely. The successes reported as savings due to attrition attributed to Students First are known to us by another name, understaffing our colleges. That's hardly innovation, and it represents for us the system's current priorities. So, by the way, does the state of our college's current reserves. And you'll see we've included for you the document 1, the hiring roster for the Consolidated College, and document 3, the FAC response to Barnes Students First financial update of February. Waynette has described during the pandemic, the system's office's grand ideas have often made life harder for faculty, staff, and students because information only goes in one direction. And it takes way more work to clean up a mess already made than to simply avoid one by making informed choices. Those of you on the higher ed committee also heard testimony earlier this week about the failures of the back office departments that were first consolidated to form shared services. The IT mess was not actually caused by the merger, but could be attributed to insufficient attention and investment in anything that concerns our current students. We're told that Guided Pathways will pay for itself by 2025. The students we retained were represented by the gray portions on that bar graph that we saw. But Guided Pathways is not a spell that you cast to bind students to your institution. Guided Pathways functions as a benefit if you have a well-designed curriculum through which to guide students. We don't have a curriculum yet. We're building it in such a rush and under so much protest, who knows if it's going to be good. Item 7 that we've provided you with are the urgent recommendations that got some of us invited to resign from working on this. The idea that guided pathways would increase enrollment by 25% is frankly disrespectful to our students, to our staff, and to our faculty. It suggests that the only thing standing between our students and a degree in 3 years or less is a clear goal and sufficient words of encouragement. What it ignores is that community college offers a unique opportunity to people who are juggling more than one job, running their own businesses, raising families, commuting by bus, simply adjusting to college after a high school that didn't prepare them for college, or easing back into academics after years in the workforce. For some of these folks, the path to success is taking it slow. And for some, it's a disjointed exercise in grabbing a class when both sufficient time and money happen to coincide for them. Extreme optimism about guided pathways also assumes that the curricular reforms that we will enact will serve our students, but we have hundreds of programs to be developed and vetted in just over a year. We still don't know officially what will happen to our specially accredited programs. A single policy, ACME, has led to pages and pages of analysis and critique. You've heard some of that from Jen. Months of work done by dozens of people across the system who are alarmed by the potentially devastating effects of the change. And this is after years of work put into developing the policy because the end result does not reflect the work the faculty actually did. I included a comparison chart that the math side of ACME provided, showing what they recommended, what the system recommended, and the potential results. We worry that our least prepared students will simply fall through the cracks and never return, that we will confirm for them what they may have suspected, that college is just not for them. But many of us see our mission as exactly the opposite, making college available to many who never saw it as a possibility. We also worry that we will dilute the content of our college level courses to accommodate the change. This policy doesn't affect just a few students. 60% of our community college students need some remedial education, and 80% of our CSU grads have some community college credits. If this goes wrong, public higher education in Connecticut will suffer as a whole. Guided pathways cost $25 million a year. That's more than the amount we aimed to save when we started this journey. What happens if we build a more expensive system and then find out that it doesn't work out the way we intended, the way the folks that know our students clearly said it couldn't? Bob Emiliani wrote an article in a Connecticut Mirror called the 737 Max and the BOR, worth reading. Those are not comparisons you want your faculty to be making. Well, maybe what happens is that we're right back where we started, facing the threat of closing campuses, but this time with an inferior system, with a hurriedly scrapped together standardized curriculum, with years of work and millions of dollars wasted, suffering a brain drain that will inevitably occur. Except this time, closing a campus is much easier than closing a college. Or maybe, because our financial viability depends on it, we feel pressure to pass students along, enacting the very same injustice that already hobbles many of them, an injustice that we have until now had the ability to address. We would defraud our students by offering them empty or flimsy credentials. Now, how did we get here? Well, higher ed is a market to be exploited. We have enrolled 12 colleges in an Achieving the Dream effort that costs about $80,000 a year with a commitment of 3 years. Let me explain how that works. Consultants fly around the country telling people who do the work that they don't do at institutions that they don't know in a state that they don't understand how to do what they already do. Now, don't get me wrong, they're very smart and accomplished, but so are our folks who have the benefit of knowing who we serve. We have the Dana Center with no experience in English, forcing reforms and undoing the work of our experienced, dedicated English professors. We have $22,000 for a pamphlet about our merger, the function of which is anyone's guess. This isn't new. Marginalized populations are at the mercies of other people's big ideas all the time. Does anyone remember the Small Schools Initiative? This is what structural injustice looks like. This is how it persists. We take spreadsheets. We insist that human beings conform to expectations without any appreciation of who they really are, without any respect for their actual situation. And when they don't thrive, we insist that they are the problem. The fact that I can pretty much quote Du Bois to you in this forum is a testament to the fact that the liberal arts education that we insist on giving to our students is not an antiquated indulgence. It's the basis for real political engagement in a world as complicated as this one. Notice how many of us who started in this system make a point of advocating on behalf of those who might never have that opportunity. Notice how many of us started in this system, period. Our system currently educates future professors, legislators, automotive technicians, nurses, respiratory therapists, social workers, doctors, lawyers, teachers, police officers. It's an interesting place, right? It's a valuable place. And those of us who do not have the luxury of mistaking the spreadsheet for the real world are telling you that what you are building will not do that. Yesterday, in one of the first real discussions I've ever witnessed at a meeting of the board, at the Finance and Infrastructure Committee, David Jimenez said, well, you know, you can save $100, but if you burn up the company doing it, well, we're telling you that we spent 2 years working on consolidation committees trying to warn folks. And when they would not hear, we refused to light the match. The unions didn't tell us to withdraw from consolidation. We were invited to withdraw by Dr. Gates if we wouldn't work within the parameters. I've included that also in the documents that you have. And realizing that there was really no ethical way of working within those parameters, we withdrew and asked our unions to support our withdrawal. We agree that systemic change is necessary to address our issues. We need systemic change that actually addresses our issues. And yes, the sunk costs are significant, but there's no need to bury ourselves in this pit. The curriculum, the college is its curriculum and its educators. The curriculum does not yet exist, and the educators are warning you that this isn't the solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you to the 4 panelists here. We're going to have Senator Anwar begin the questions here in just a second. I just want to set kind of a parameters here for time. We have a higher education committee meeting at 1. Some members may want to run to the restroom or grab lunch or something in between these two. So we'll try to have, you know, maybe half an hour of questions here, and then we'll need to break before we reconvene at 1. That said, Senator Anwar, good afternoon. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Doctors Lopez, Sasanker, Long, and Arnhem for your testimony and also sharing some of your experiences. And Dr. Sasanker, I had the chance to read your op-ed that was in City Mirror, which highlights some of the parts that were truly eye-opening to me, and then also somewhat painful to me to look at. If I heard some of the previous speakers speak about the enrollment decreasing, while the numbers have decreased, have the demographic changes been different? Anyone can speak to that.
Yes, Senator Anwar, I want to acknowledge you because you are my senator. I live in East Hartford, so you're my senator. The community colleges have become much more diverse. One of the categories is Hispanic serving institution, which means they have 25 or more percentage. I think right now there are at least 3 community colleges that are Hispanic serving institution. You have Norwalk, you have Capital Community College, and you have Nagatok Valley Community College. I think Housatonic and Gateway are on the verge of becoming Hispanic serving institution. The other thing that you need to understand that is as a standalone, they can apply for grants. Norwalk has a huge grant as a Hispanic serving institution, so does Capital. If the institutions are consolidated, they will no longer have that because as a system, they will not reach the 25%. So they will not be able to apply for grants individually as they do now. Now, part of what's happening, and this is part of what you need to understand when the achievement gap is measured, is as you begin to attract a newer type of students in such large numbers, like in Nagatok, usually at the beginning, the graduation rates are not going to be the best. That takes time to address intentionality, that takes time to work with the high schools and so on. But what you see is a trend towards improvement. You see a trend toward doing much better. Nagatok Valley was recognized, for example, in the graduation rates of adults, students at the college. And I know more Nagatok Valley because I had the privilege of serving there as the interim dean of academic affairs for a year. After I retired, I went back, and I did it because I believe in the mission of community college and believe in the work they do. My brother went to the community college as a veteran. And my stepdaughter also, as a respiratory therapist, she graduated from a community college. So this is something that I'm passionate about, and I cannot accept when the story is not told in the right way that it has happened. Thank you.
And thank you, Dr. Lopez. Again, your accomplishments and the work that you've done, I am so impressed, and I'm truly privileged to be at this time representing you from East Hartford. And then thank you for your work. So in our little experience while we're trying to consolidate, my understanding is that the agenda was that we are going to save money, but have we had any meaningful success in saving money, and has that caused the administrative part of the system get more bodies, if you will?
Can I say that the realized savings, if I'm correct from the presentation at the beginning, the savings realized have been through attrition. And as I said, we've been experiencing that as understaffing. Sorry, it was, have we actually saved money? Yeah, so during last year, right? What we saw was that we were devoting, and I included the hiring roster with what you have. We were hiring administrators, right? While leaving the colleges as they were, right? Hiring freeze, 2% reduction, etc. The way that manifests for us is that while we had a couple of counselors, we know that mental health is an issue, especially going through COVID, right? We had a couple of counselors, maybe even at the beginning of this year. We have pretty soon none, because the last one has given her notice. One of those counselors is now working as an administrator at the system office, right? So the savings have been through attrition, and we have spent millions of dollars. That roster represents 10.5 million. We're not quite there yet, but that's for fiscal year 21 on people who do not currently interact with students. When the IT craziness was happening at the beginning of the year, someone sent a text to someone who's now working at system office, or well, the new consolidated college, kind of joking about it. And that person said, what? They didn't even know what we were going through. Students weren't able to get into their courses, and they didn't even know. And then you realize, oh yeah, how would they know, right? There are no students that they're accountable to right now. So if my understanding of the presentation at the beginning is correct, through attrition only, but we have also been investing in an administrative structure that is only getting larger. I've also included the 15-page org chart for the eventual college, because that administrative structure continues to grow. It's not just a artifact of this transitional structure, it's actually built into the plan for the college.
Thank you so much. And my final question is student first really student first?
No, again, student first has to address the classroom and the relationship between students and faculty. That's a student engagement. When you hear about all this consolidation and that administrative organizational chart, you don't see the classroom there. That is absent from all this discussion. That's why I have to come here and talk to you. Again, I have a lot of respect for all the presenters from the system office. I work with them. I know them by first name, and they've been my colleagues. So I'm not criticizing them as human beings, but I need to express my opposition to a consolidation that doesn't support the classroom experience and pretends to do that, which is disingenuous. That's really what gets to me. And not only that, the validation, and this is something I have to use that word because they use validation and attributed it to a researcher that has done solid work on that. And they misquoted her totally. We had to go and talk to her. So clarify. Validation is when you come to a campus and the services, the support systems acknowledge you and trust you and support you in whatever you're doing. That doesn't happen at a system level. That happens at the campus level. Thank you.
I would like to go and also answer is students first, students first. In my example, it shows that it is not. you can see it seems like the policy and what it did was it punished students. It punished students for not having laptops. It punished students who are saying during this hard time, I am still going to push forward with my education. But then you have the system office saying, oh, you didn't participate within the allotted time, we're dropping you out. So no, that's not students first. That is hurting our students.
Yeah, Dr. Long, you were saying something.
I would also like to reply, please. Thank you so much. I was just struck by when Dr. Levinson talked about key performance indicators early on today and the charts that they have. And I was thinking about the PACT situation, and I can give you a quick example of a student. So I have a student this semester in my developmental English class who got the PACT funds. She came in, she was misplaced. And they spend a lot of money on charts, but they don't spend a lot of money on placement. And the English faculty have been arguing for years that if you fund us to read student essays coming in that are reading based, that we could have really strong placement so students are in the right classes. Because placement is such an issue, I have a student who came in and she had the PACT money. She was placed into college composition. She also took public speaking and math all in the same semester. The student cannot read at an inferential level. So she was asked by her English professor to consider taking developmental with me. In my class, I assessed early on that she can literally comprehend a 5-paragraph essay, one controlling idea per paragraph, and she can tell me a summary of what she read. She cannot inferentially comprehend the deeper meaning of the text or tell me the thesis or the argument. So she would struggle greatly in public speaking. Now, because she's been dropped down to my class and her math class didn't run because of COVID low enrollment, she got put into early childhood and FY8, and she can't drop any classes because she's stuck in the system now. So you have a student who was misplaced, who cannot read inferentially, who's taking 5 classes right now. She's completely panic stricken. And I am meeting with every single faculty member to create a plan to help her get through and manage and scaffold her reading and writing instruction in all of those courses. So when they talked about the one anecdote of the student who couldn't graduate and all these back office things to get that student the extra credits at the other campuses, that pales in comparison to what the faculty do on a daily basis to resolve issues of these bureaucratic structures that are problematic for students. And the student internalizing that she's a failure, and that money and that dream of free college tuition is probably gonna fall apart for her because she's very likely to drop out. And even with extensive intervention, I don't think we can retain her because she came in at too low of a level, and it is our placement problems that are to blame, not the students. So I don't think that is the students' first idea. And I think that's going to be a ripple effect. So they can show us a chart of what guided pathways is going to do, and the elimination of developmental is going to be catastrophic. But the second part of the chart that talks about PACT, those numbers that they're quoting will not be realized. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Anwar. I would ask just our panelists to be as economical as they can with their responses, because I want to make sure that my colleagues on the committee have enough time to ask their questions. So with that, Representative Vail, followed by Representative Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and good afternoon to the panelists. And thank you for coming up. I found your testimony to be much very sincere and heartfelt, and I didn't feel like that same genuine feeling this morning when talking to members of the BOR. So they had said earlier in this morning that the faculty is included in these decisions, and that the people that are against it, and they kind of precluded that. They knew there were people who were going to come up and say opposite of what they were saying later on, that this is a very small group of professors that are opposed to the consolidation, and that you guys are the outlier. I just want to give you a quick opportunity to respond to that. Do you feel as though the faculty has been included fairly, and that it's just a few of you that are opposed to this, or that there is a wider spread group of professors that are opposed to this and maybe are in fear of speaking out?
I'll just state that faculty person after faculty person has explained specific examples of times that they have come forward with great ideas and they've been completely dismissed. And that's the ripple effect, as I mentioned in what I stated, that tomorrow all of the faculty in English are going to vote because we have not been heard. If I had more time, I would give you very specific examples of that, but I do believe that faculty the vast majority of faculty do not feel like their input has been heard, and that is why they're stepping down.
May I also call on Amanda Sweeney? She's here with us, and she actually worked with that. She worked on this stuff. She's not considered an objector, and I think she might have something to say about this.
Hi, thank you. I'm Amanda Sweeney from Gateway College, first year studies math. I was lucky enough to be involved at the state level, collaborating with math faculty on bringing math pathways to the Connecticut community colleges prior to consolidation. It's a lengthy process. Change takes time. And when you want to do something well, it takes time. In the interim, consolidation happened. A team called ACME was formed. I was designated the math lead. We made a list of recommendations that I think tallied around 14 or 15, dealing with everything from PACT funding to professional development. And then in May, submitted our recommendations, and June 1st, I received a letter, "Thank you for my time. My voice was no longer needed." 173 days later, System Office released a draft policy with the name ACME attached to it that did not represent our recommendations. We submitted within a 43-day window we were given to reply a concise response to that policy draft. We are still waiting to be told what the response is to our critiques of that original draft. They were not all in opposition, but there were some significant concerns identified. We have requested a response because the timeline they propose has us designing this curriculum to be done in a year. We're now halfway through the spring semester. I've already gotten my summer school assignment. So even if I was asked to participate, my time is not available because it's committed. I want to speak very strongly. I'm eager to continue that work, but was specifically asked, basically told, ACME no longer exists. So thank you for your time. So I do not feel that the faculty voice is being heard.
That's kind of the impression I got, but I wanted to, ask that anyways, because they're kind of pushed that off a little, I didn't like that. Is there anything that would preclude you or keep you from, having a consolidated effort on your own anyways, like with your colleagues from other community colleges to share ideas? And
we have a group already that's called HEEAC that includes representatives and participants from all 12 campuses, plus the 4 CSUs and UConn. We meet a minimum of once per month. We've met every Friday since the beginning of this semester in subgroups to address the needs of our students. Math Pathways is not a consolidation effort. Math Pathways is a student-first initiative that, consolidation or not, needs to move forward. And without their timeline, we believe we could do it well. And we could do it with math faculty at the lead. Our leads of this ACME organization were a psychology and exercise science faculty member. The writers of the policy draft, I believe, were administrators. I don't actually know who wrote the draft, but I do know that it was not written by math or English faculty, yet it relates 100% to math and English faculty and students.
All right, I appreciate it. And you can definitely see the tone difference in between. And you guys, I want to thank you, number one, for coming up here. I'm sure it's not always easy, but you're passionate. You can see you're passionate. You're right there, hands-on with the students. You understand the administrative part of it to some extent too. And I just don't feel that same sense of sincerity when I hear people. And we could put, and we often do in this building, we put fancy names on stuff to make it sound pretty and nice. And in reality, it doesn't really represent what the goal of that project is, or that bill, or whatever it is. And clearly students first is not students first. It's I don't know what it is, but I want to thank everyone on this panel for your sincerity and bringing this, again, I'm new to this committee, bringing this to light. Feel free to reach out to me. I I'm listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Turco.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks everybody for being here, and all the faculty. And I know we've spoke a lot on this issue, and I believe strongly you all have the best interest in mind in our community college system, and just want to see, ensure that that they get the best education possible. I'm so disheartened by this entire Students First debate for the over 2 years that I've been part of it. I feel like we're losing so much ground in working to ensure our students really are getting that education they need to build Connecticut's workforce to compete in the 21st century, and making our institutions some of the best in the nation. And they are already very good compared to most other states in the nation, but I know we can do better. So what I'm asking is, and what I asked the system office, because I believe there's a lot of good, hardworking people there that were in your positions at one time. Representative Vail asked if they had teaching experience, and they're former professors, as well, that have become administrators. And I do believe that they also want the best for our students. But it just seems we're so far apart. We continue to be so far apart between faculty and the administration. Where is the common ground? I've asked them what mistakes they've made and what they can do better going forward. It appears to me that there's a good chance that Students First initiative and this consolidation will continue to go forward. I know that many in the state, faculty members, would like to see this whole thing dissolved now and go back to the independence. I don't know if that's going to happen, though. There seems to be a moving train that can't be stopped. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but let's say it continues to go forward, this consolidation. Where's the common ground? What do you need to make this work better for our students, for the faculty, so it's a smoother process, so it does do all of these things that I believe are good. The merit in this is great. Better financial aid, linking, easier for registration of the classes, the single app, better the student to faculty ratio, reducing a burdensome administrative tools, reducing the accreditation process, better alignment of programs. I mean, these are all wonderful things. So what is your needs that I can put pressure on the office and ask them to please help us get there? I'm sorry for the long-winded answer, but I wanted to make sure I was clear in my intent. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Kalina, go ahead.
So as you've mentioned, Representative Turco, this has gone on for about 2 years, and the really vocal aspect of it began with a petition that was signed by about 1,400 of us, expressing concern about this. It then escalated to a vote of no confidence in the plan and in leadership. If you look at, there's a website that just documents all the various resolutions from our governance, our shared governance bodies, expressing concern. The most important thing is that there needs to be actual shared governance. There needs to be input from the people who actually interact with students. We are allowed into the rooms, as Amanda has pointed out, as Jen has pointed out. We sit in those rooms. We sit in those rooms for years. We do lots of work, and then it is just replaced by something that was already prepackaged by some consulting company somewhere. And to be perfectly honest, if we are going to prioritize cost savings, then what we're going to get is going to even our curriculum will emphasize cost savings. So, I mean, just about all of the things you just listed can be accomplished if you have the good faith of your workforce and you allow us to work together. In fact, they were already in process. 2 years ago, this leadership group came before you and talked about the difficulties of students who enroll concurrently, about the need for a common app, about the need for having, taking care of ways that their financial aid may not cover books at a different institution. Nothing has been done about it. There's nothing standing in the way of that. There are lots of ways that we can address these issues. So I believe that we need actual input, we need communication going both ways, and we need to do all of those things that you just said, and we can do them without single accreditation.
Great. Thank you. Yeah, Jennifer, quickly, go
I
ahead.
just wanted to quickly say that I think it speaks volumes too that we're expressing that faculty aren't heard, and the bulk of the people who presented this morning didn't stay on to hear us today. And I think that to answer your question, we need the dollars to be spent on the students in the classroom, and we need them to ask instructors how to best spend those dollars. Thank you.
Thank you. And Estella, I don't know if you're still with us, but I just wanted to real quick give you an opportunity. There you are. Good to see you again. The administration is, I guess maybe what they would say is fact checking you in real time. So I want to give you an opportunity to just, you know, for edification of everybody. You talked about the HSIs and grant opportunities. And the administration has reached out and said that the entire CSCC will qualify as an HSI, and it opens up much more federal grant funding for the entire state instead of just 3 colleges. Any response to that?
Absolutely. I don't know the data, but in declining enrollment and the fact that only 3 of the schools are currently HSI, that doesn't really look like they would qualify and meet the 25% threshold. If you qualify for HSI, you can only get 1 grant. Now there are 2 concurrent HSI grants at the system, and they're $1 million or more. So I do have another perspective regarding what they're suggesting, that the funding and the opportunity to get large funding when you become one consolidated really goes away. I work in Puerto Rico where what we did was really separate the campuses so they would have the opportunity to secure more funding through grants and federal money that would come to the campus as self-standing and not as one consolidated one. So I work on both sides. I know both sides. I know systems. And again, I'm talking from experience. And again, I appreciate my colleagues offering that perspective, but I don't see it that way. Thank you.
Derek, you muted.
Thank you, Mr. Co-Chair. I try not to do that, but once a day that happens at least. So I don't see any other additional questions. Representative Elliott, my co-chair, do you have any comments or any closing thoughts that you want to share?
No, this is the beginning of a conversation, and we will be meeting more regularly so that we can continue this conversation, so that you know, anything that the Board of Regents wants to clear the air after all you fine folk have had your say, and then we can just keep on going back and forth until we reach some sort of consensus at some point in the future. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Yep. Thank you. And yeah, pre-COVID, we'd get a whole bunch of pizzas and get everybody in a room, first and third panels. That was a suggestion, right? And we don't come out until we got to a better place. So we'll have to figure out how to do that in these challenging times, but really do appreciate your passionate testimony. I mean, this was coupled with the fact that we just had a public hearing, so many of you spoke during that as well. So this is not easy, and we appreciate your engagement. With that, if I don't see any other questions or comments from members, we will adjourn, and we'll see you again in 23 minutes. All right, have a good afternoon.